Chapter 555. In the second year of the Ding. Ever since Emperor Zhuang ascended to Dongzhen, Zhuang country had changed greatly. The country was prosperous and the people were peaceful. Opening up the waterways had received the full support of Qinjiang Water Prefecture. Repairing the official roads had connected all the major cities into one. As a result, very few of those heretical evil cultivators chose the Zhuang kingdom as their base of operations. Outside the borders, forcefully taking away 10 cities of Mo Kingdom was equivalent to expanding Zhuang country by another county. However, Emperor Zhuang did not establish a fourth county. It was said that a court official requested for this, but Zhuang Gaoxian asked, "Can a mere 10 cities be considered a county?" His ambition was obvious. Mo Kingdom frantically sent out large amounts of resources to bribe Qin Kingdom. After receiving the support of Qin Kingdom, the borders were finally peaceful. More and more citizens of the Zhuang country gradually realized that the weak Zhuang country in the past, where everyone could step on it, was gone forever. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the current Zhuang country was thriving. Zhuang country had 3 counties. Hualin County was where the capital was located. Daesan County included the newly obtained 10 cities and became the largest county in Zhuang country. Only Qinghe County did not seem to have changed. In the entire Qinghe County, the most mysterious and desirable place should be Xinjiang Water Prefecture. In Zhuang country, humans and water races had sworn an alliance for hundreds of years and lived harmoniously. Of course, there were some small conflicts, but it did not affect the overall situation. In other words, the overall situation was controlled by those in high positions. The legendary Xinjiang Water Prefecture used white jade as the stairs, gold as the bricks, and pearls as the decorations. Naturally, it attracted the attention of ordinary people. However, the Dao Academy of Qinghe Prefecture was the one that made people break their heads to enter. It had become the dream place of many people. That was because this place represented the level of cultivation, status, and future. However, the Dao Academy only accepted a limited number of people every year. There were so many cultivators in the 13 cities of Qinghe County who did not work hard to enter the Dao Academy. Those who were successful were the minority. As Maplewood City had been lost, there were only 12 cities left in Qinghe County. However, the standards of the Dao Academy did not lower. Instead, the number of places was reduced. Strictly speaking, it was not rare to see those frustrated people wandering outside the Dao Academy. To Lu Yao, the second-year student of the Dao Academy, the young man standing in front of the archway and looking into the Dao Academy, should be one of them. But there was something different about him. Lu Yao admitted that his facial features were quite outstanding, but what attracted her attention was not his face. Instead, it was that pair of eyes that were gentle and indifferent, distant and mysterious. When he looked at the county's Daoist Academy, he was still feeling a little emotional. Lu Yao couldn't tell if that emotion was regret or melancholy, but made him very charming. This was the 3rd day that this person had appeared outside the County Dao Academy. It was the same afternoon, and he was standing in the same position. He was also looking into the County Dao Academy. What was he looking at? Lu Yao didn't know, but she suddenly wanted to go up and ask. This shouldn't be happening. To Lu Yao, this was very wrong. Last year, she had managed to squeeze into the County Dao College by being one of the last few places. Every year, a batch of people would be eliminated from the County Dao Academy. She had worked very hard to maintain her current position and not become one of the people eliminated. When she was in the Changdao Academy, she was also one of the best and was quite outstanding. However, in the County Dao Academy, the geniuses of the various large cities were competing together. In a moment of absent-mindedness, she had already disappeared into the crowd. Therefore, she never wasted time. She was so stingy that she had detailed rules about which path to take every day and how much time to spend on the road. However, she had actually stopped for 3 consecutive days because of a stranger. Dao seekers had to be loyal to their hearts. The dean seemed to have said this before. When Lu Yao thought of this sentence, she heaved a sigh of relief. She had found a reason for herself. Therefore, she changed her direction and walked out, walking in front of the young man who was quietly looking into the distance. "Hello," Lu Yao greeted. The young man retracted his gaze and looked at her. He didn't say anything, only using his gaze to express his inquiry. As an official student of the County Dao Academy, Lu Yao was used to flattery. At first, she was worried that this young man was no different from those vulgar people and would flatter her in the County Dao Academy. But now this young man's attitude was too indifferent. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She had never had such an experience of worrying about gains and losses. Lu Yao opened her mouth and wanted to ask something, but she paused for a moment. When the words reached her mouth, she forgot what she wanted to ask. Only then did she realize that she didn't really have a problem. She just wanted to find a topic. "What's the matter?" The young man took the initiative to ask. As if the last gesture of the seal was completed, the Dao technique flowed naturally. Lu Yao's thoughts became clear. She said, "There's no point for you to stand here and watch every day. There will be no sympathy or favor. The County Dao Academy won't accept disciples for any reason other than strength. I've been there before." She advised, "A temporary loss is nothing. The County Dao Academy has a quota every year. You should seize the time and cultivate well. You have the confidence to improve by an inch." She hesitated for a moment, but still said, "I'm a second-year student of the County Dao Academy. If you have any questions about cultivation, you can ask me." The meaning of this sentence was too obvious. It almost made her blush. She forcefully used her Dao essence to control it and calm her violently beating heart. The young man quietly listened to her and then replied, "It's okay." His voice was gentle, with a kind of slow indifference and gentleness. "I'm just looking," he said. He wasn't dissatisfied with her presumptuousness, nor did he seem close to her because of her good intentions. He was like before, and he was like now. It was as if he wouldn't change for anyone or anything. "Oh," Lu Yao was stunned. "Oh, okay." But she didn't know what was so good about it. The young man seemed to want to continue watching, but she was still standing there. So he paused and glanced at her again. That gaze seemed to say, "Is there anything else?" Lu Yao seemed to wake up from a dream and reacted immediately. "I'll leave first. Goodbye." The young man nodded politely. Lu Yao walked into the Dao Academy in a panic. But after taking 2 steps, she gritted her teeth and turned back. "Right, I still don't know. What's your name?" In order to show her sincerity, she first introduced herself. "I'm Lu Yao. Yao as in Mu Tao and Xiong Yao." At this time, the young man's gaze had already returned to the distance. Under the setting sun, looking at him from this angle, he had an indescribable aura of alienation. At this moment, Lu Yao vaguely felt that he had nothing to do with the world. Such a person shouldn't care too much about the County Dao Academy's gains and losses. So what was he looking at? Time seemed to pass very slowly. Lu Yao's thoughts rose and fell, appearing and disappearing quickly. For a few moments, she thought that she wouldn't be able to get an answer, but she finally endured the short but exceptionally long silence. She waited for the young man's answer. "Yin Xiang," he said. "P.S. The operations team has opened a character promotion event. Everyone can participate by replying to the latest highlights in the book review section. If you participate in the promotion of your character, you will be rewarded with Qidian coins. See the post for the specific rules. Because the rules of Qidian have changed, only books with 1 star and above can participate in this event. So, this may be the last event for this book. I hope everyone will participate. Please pick our Jiang Wang." Chapter 556. Beijing was Yin Fu's hometown. Jiang Wang came here purely because of the case of No Door to Hell. In order to atone for his crimes and completely eliminate No Door to Hell, Zheng Shi formed a luxurious hunting team. He sent out 14 blue metal constables who were good at investigating cases, and the weakest of them was at grade 5. 10 of them were grade 5 inner mansion constables, and the other 4 were grade 4 outer mansion constables. Zheng Shi even personally invited a retired master from Baya, the former god of constables, Yulong, who was at Shunlin State. It almost emptied out Baya's assets. 1 Shunlin, 4 outer mansion constables, 10 inner mansion constables, and Jiang Wang, who got a spot at the last minute. There were a total of 16 masters. The reason why they came to Beijing was that the hunting team came here after investigating clues. Although Jiang Wang was only here in name, he still had to come and deal with them. He would leave with the excuse of investigating clues. Yes, although no door to hell assassins successfully assassinated Zhao Xian and escaped from Linzi, they did not manage to escape from Qi. Jiang Wang only found out about this when he arrived at Beijing and saw all the blue metal constables. There were many reasons why no door to hell assassinated Zhao Xian successfully. It was because of their strength, preparation, and luck. As for a powerful country like Qi, once they reacted, the word terrifying could not describe it. Although the Political Affairs Hall did not have time to seal off Linzi City, they sealed off the country's border. All the border cities were adjusted to the highest level of alert, and people who left Qi were checked repeatedly. It was guaranteed that no one could leave without a sound. The country's border outside the city was controlled by the National Defense Array, and no one could pass through. There was a peerless master controlling the National Defense Array. Once there were signs of people trying to break through, he would arrive immediately. It could be said that compared to the hunting team formed by Bea, this master controlling the National Defense Array was the real fatal guillotine hanging above no door to hell's head. The gateless hell was like a fish that had been targeted. Although it was cunning and powerful, and although it had leaped out of Linzi, it was still in the pond that was Qi. What the hunting team needed to do was to spread out a large net during the period when the country's borders were sealed. They needed to ferret out the assassins from hell and annihilate them. When Jiang Wang showed up at the bounty squad, arrestor god Yulong did not appear. Perhaps he only came out of seclusion this time as a safeguard in terms of martial strength. There is no doubt that the blue metal constables had the ability to gather information. Everyone knew about the confrontation between Xiong Tu and the army god in Linzi City. They were all very enthusiastic towards Jiang Wang. Some of them even wanted to chop off a chicken's head and burn yellow paper money on the spot. However, they were pushed away by Jiang Wang. The person in charge of the bounty squad, formed by Bea, was actually a rank 4 blue metal constable named Ma Xiong. Zheng Shi must have hinted to him that Jiang Wang was not really here to investigate the case, so he did not arrange any difficult tasks for Jiang Wang. Of course, due to the difference in power and responsibility, he was not allowed to participate in the real core of the case. In the eyes of the other blue metal constables, this was very reasonable. Jiang Wang's reputation in Qi could be said that he was favored by God. It was natural for him to be taken care of and receive resources. Naturally, he should not trouble such a prodigy with some trivial tasks. When the bounty squad arrived at Bea County, they naturally followed the clues of no door to hell. However, these things had nothing to do with Jiang Wang. Whether it was no door to hell or Qi, it was not up to him to control the situation. Even if he cared about the case, he would not be stupid enough to show it. He only planned to quietly muddle along for 2 days and then part ways with the bounty squad. The famous Jiang Qingyang. What are you thinking about here alone? Do you have any new ideas about no door to hell? A female voice came from behind him. The bounty squad was not ostentatious in Bea County, but they did not hide their tracks either. They lived in a spacious house arranged by Bea County. At this moment, the others were not around. Jiang Wang sat alone in the pavilion in the middle of the pond, thinking about his own matters. He turned around and saw a woman with a green scarf on her head. The woman looked ordinary, but her eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. Jiang Wang recognized her. She was a rank 5 blue metal constable in the bounty squad. Her name was Lin Yuxi. She was also the person who left the deepest impression on him in the bounty squad. Even though her official position was only rank 5 and her strength was only at the Soaring Dragon realm, she was the constable with the lowest realm in the bounty squad. He had participated in a few case discussions. Among the experienced constables, Lin Yuxi did not speak much, but every word she said was targeted. Her thoughts were very clear, and she often hit the nail on the head. I still have some self-awareness. Jiang Wang smiled gently and skipped the previous question. You guys have thought it through thoroughly. What new ideas can I have? Even if he did not plan to stay in this line of work, he would not easily offend these blue metal constables. Lin Yuxi looked at him. You are too humble. He was annoyed by these smart people. It was too painful to guess their thoughts. Jiang Wang thought about it indifferently, but he said, Constable Lin, why are you so free to chat with me today? We have already found traces of King Taishan. Lord Yu and Lord Ma have gone there. Lin Yuxi said casually, With my strength, I can't help much even if I go there. I will just wait for news at home. King Taishan was ranked 7th among the 10 kings of hell. He was one of the people who attacked at the little bridge. He was an expert at the peak of the outer building realm. However, in front of Yulong, who had been famous for a long time, once his tracks were exposed, he would not stand a chance. Jiang Wang was shocked in his heart, but he did not show it on his face. As a member of the hunting team in name, he did not know about such important news beforehand. As expected, he was just a member in name. Then what was the reason for Lin Yuxi to talk about this matter? It was purely because the operation had already started and King Taishan was almost captured. Therefore, there was no need to keep it a secret. Or was it a test? Cheng Gongsheng had a very good example. Jiang Wang decided not to scare himself. His meeting with Yingguan outside Linzi City was very secretive. Other than them, no one else would know. The only one who knew, Su Shi, was already dead. He did not believe that Yingguan would expose the matter of him, helping to arrange for him to enter the city. It was not that he believed that Yingguan would value him and protect him. It was that he believed that a person like Yingguan would not be captured alive. That's great, Jiang Wang said. Lin Yuxi shifted his gaze and looked at the water. It was close to winter. The lotus leaves had already withered. The water was still clear, and there were some black rotten leaves floating on it. That's right, she suddenly asked. How is Zhang Yong now? Feng Xianzhang? Jiang Wang did not want to be led by the nose. He asked, Why are you asking me? Oh, Feng Xianzhang's case of family extermination was investigated by me. Then he should thank you, Jiang Wang said. Although we found the culprit was already unrecognizable and committed suicide in front of us. It's no different from not finding anything. It's good that we found the culprit, Jiang Wang said without much sincerity. He stood up and used his actions to show that he was not interested in the topic. Sorry, Lin Yuxi apologized. I found out that before you went to the Yang country, you paid a visit to Zhang Yong. You were both winners of the Heavenly Secret Territory. So I thought that you two were close, so I asked you. I'm just doing a routine job for Cheng Gongsheng. He's working in the Longevity Palace now and has a bright future. We don't have much contact, Jiang Wang said and turned to leave. Chapter 557. Why did she ask about Zhang Yong? Why did she ask about Zhang Yong? Jiang Wang knew that something was wrong with Zhang Yong when he was on Yunwu Mountain. She hid her strength and had a mysterious eye technique. Maybe she wasn't a real descendant of the Phoenix immortal Zhang family. It was just a matter of time before he decided to expose her. Jiang Wang didn't know why she chose to hide it for Zhang Yong in the end. After thinking about it, he was probably moved by Zhang Yong's pleading eyes. Even earlier, when he left the Heaven's Secret Realm, he had a strange sense of familiarity with Zhang Yong, which made his attitude towards Zhang Yong very gentle. He didn't have any bad feelings towards Zhang Yong. But now, why did Lin Yuxi ask him about Zhang Yong? It wasn't that Jiang Wang liked to think too much, but Lin Yuxi's identity was too sensitive. Blue Metal Constables were in charge of all kinds of transcendent cases in Qi. Zhang Yong was indeed suspicious. And for a famous constable like Lin Yuxi, who had a blue medal for generations, his methods of handling cases were unquestionable. Was Zhang Yong exposed? Was it possible that he was involved? Jiang Wang was still weighing the pros and cons in his room when he heard a noise outside. It turned out that Yulong had returned with King Taishan. Jiang Wang sighed. King Taishan was an absolute high-ranking member of the Gateless Hell. He was one of the 10 kings of hell. If he was captured alive, it meant that the situation was completely exposed. With so many experienced blue metal constables around, King Taishan couldn't hide the answer. It wasn't even up to his own will. Now, It was up to the others in the gateless hell to see how far they could run and how deep they could hide before King Taishan spilled the information. However, now that the borders of the country had been sealed off, could they really hide under the full pursuit of the green plate arresters in the kingdom of Qi, even if they threw away all their previous arrangements? Jiang Wang finally saw Yulong. This former god of detectives had a square face and light hair. He had a serious expression. Some of the cases that this person handled were still talked about enthusiastically. Judging from his glorious experience, this person was at least 150 years old. However, the lifespan of a deity descent elite was 518 years. If there were no disasters or tribulations, he still had a very long lifespan. With his strength and status, he no longer had any aspirations in the Northern Yamen. If he hadn't retired, Zheng Shi probably wouldn't have had the chance to become the commandant of the Northern Yamen. Such a person's only pursuit in life was probably to see through the truth. He did not know how Zheng Shi managed to get him to come out of seclusion. Behind him, Yulong used a chain to lead him in like a dog. Naturally, it was King Taishan, who had no door to hell. Other than Yin Guan, King Taishan was the first King Yinluo that Jiang Wang had seen in person. Of course, the mask had been taken off long ago. His face was thin and long, and his eyes were very fierce. Even though both of his hands were chained up, even though Yulong was pulling him until he staggered, he still looked ferocious. He saw Jiang Wang, who happened to be walking over to greet the blue metal arresters. Seeing that he was handsome and was guarding the station, he probably thought that he was a rich young master from a wealthy family. He even grinned and said in a deranged manner, "Young man, have you seen blood before?" Jiang Wang looked at him calmly. He didn't say anything, nor did he show any other expression. If the person who was captured was Ying Guan or King Song, whom he had met at the small connecting bridge, Jiang Wang might be a little emotional. This King Taishan's threat had no effect on Jiang Wang at all. No matter how fierce the King Yinluo of Hell was, he was only a prisoner now. Ma Xiong was walking beside King Taishan. He raised his hand and looked like he wanted to give him a few slaps. It was probably because he had suffered a little in the previous capture. But when he saw Arrestor Yulong walking in front, he put down his hand. The rest of the blue metal arresters followed behind the team. Jiang Wang didn't show any dissatisfaction that the information was kept from him. He gestured to each of them, and of course, he received a friendly response. No one would be unwilling to be friends with a Qianjiao. Regardless of the future, Jiang Wang's current strength was worthy of their respect. Yulong didn't have any special words for Jiang Wang. His view was probably similar to King Taishan's. He only looked on coldly from the side as Qianjiao was being nurtured by the aristocratic families. Yulong pulled King Taishan all the way to the door of the living room. He then stopped and turned back to look at the criminal he had captured. "I gave you the time to think. Have you thought of what you want to tell me?" He didn't ask any specific questions. Instead, he asked King Taishan to think about what answer he could provide. King Taishan looked at him fiercely and didn't say anything. After waiting for a while, Yulong said, "Very good." When he said very good, his tone was really very good. He didn't sound threatening or intimidating at all. After saying that, he waved his hand. "Ma Xiong and Lin Yuxi, stay here. The rest of you can leave." The instructions were clear and simple. Ma Xiong was of course the person in charge of this arrest team, but that was only when Yulong wasn't around. Now that Yulong spoke, he obediently did as he was told. Yulong was obviously going to torture him. As the identity of the blue metal was only temporarily borrowed, Jiang Wang obviously didn't have the right to learn from the side. He also couldn't understand the progress of the case immediately. It wasn't just Jiang Wang. Most of the people in the arrest team had already been dismissed. What Jiang Wang didn't expect was that Lin Yuxi was one of the only two people Yulong had left behind. Maybe Yulong saw her in a different light. Or maybe she had some extraordinary methods that even Yulong had to rely on. No matter what the reason was, Jiang Wang paid more attention to Lin Yuxi's questions. This wasn't an insignificant blue metal, but he could only keep this in his heart. After casually chatting with the other constables, Jiang Wang returned to his own room. He behaved very well and didn't even try to get anything out of them. He didn't seem to be curious about how the arrest team had captured King Taishan. If there was a chance, Jiang Wang actually wanted to help Ying Guan. First of all, Ying Guan had saved his life. Although he had said that he had helped him enter the city to make up for it, there was still a bond between them. Second of all, although he was sure that Ying Guan wouldn't expose that he had helped Ying Guan sneak in a Linzi, this was no small matter. Cheng Gengsheng had used this matter to destroy the business that Yung Gunzuan had left behind. He had forced Wen Lianmu to give up resisting and forced Wang Yiwu to take the risk out of desperation. Once the truth was exposed, there wouldn't be a good outcome no matter how he thought about it. But what could he do? The people who lived in this courtyard were all blue metal constables who had been working with transcendent being cases their whole lives. What could he do without giving himself away and not being discovered? Jiang Wang didn't have that kind of confidence. Hence, he could only shut the door and cultivate, playing the role of a loafer. Not long after he returned to his room, King Taishan's scream rang out in the courtyard. What kind of torture could make a vicious person like King Taishan, who had been hovering on the line between life and death all year round, scream? Since they couldn't see the scene, it made people's imaginations seem particularly gloomy. The sound came from the living room. It traveled through half of the courtyard and reached Jiang Wang's ears. It didn't stop for the entire night. An expert at the peak of the outer building realm is indeed full of energy. Jiang Yin said, "Shut up." Jiang Wang replied in a bad mood. Chapter 558. The next day, a group of blue metal constables gathered in the courtyard. Ever since the team was established, they would meet every morning and evening to summarize the clues and discuss the case. It was a rule. Jiang Wang could participate sometimes, and sometimes he couldn't. It depended on the importance of the case. When he came out today, he specially observed Ma Xiong. Ma Xiong's expression was unnatural. Obviously, Yulong's methods were terrifying. Even Ma Xiong, a fourth-grade blue metal constable who dealt with criminal cases all year round, couldn't get used to it. But Lin Yuxi's expression was normal. No one knew if it was because of her strong willpower or because she was used to it. King Taishan was still in the living room. His screams had stopped at dawn. No one knew if he was dead or alive. After everyone had arrived, Yulong wiped his hands with a handkerchief and walked out slowly. This action inevitably made people think that Yulong had used his hands to torture King Taishan. Ma Xiong looked around and frowned. "Where's Lu Jia? Why isn't he here yet? Are there any rules? Do you want Officer Yu to wait for him?" Lu Jia was one of the 10 blue metal constables in the Intermansion realm. Ma Xiong was a good person. He was quite protective of his colleagues. He scolded first to protect Lu Jia so that Yulong wouldn't lose his temper. "I didn't see him when I passed by his room," a blue metal constable said hesitantly. Even Emperor Qi had paid attention to this mission of hunting down the gateless hell. It was a good opportunity for promotion, but it was also very strict. Except for Jiang Wang, everyone in the team had to be strictly controlled. If anyone dared to neglect their duties during the investigation, it would mean that they didn't care about their own future. Everyone present was an experienced blue metal constable. They immediately realized that something was wrong. "When was the last time you saw Lu Jia?" Yulong asked. "It should be yesterday," the blue metal constable said. "When you were interrogating King Taishan yesterday, we went back to our rooms. He lives next door." Yulong asked again, "Are you sure he didn't go out?" "I can only be sure that he did go back to his room yesterday, but I don't know if he left or where he went." The blue metal constable was very careful with his words. They were all in the Intermansion realm, and they were colleagues. Normally, no one would stare at each other all day. If Lu Jia had snuck out, it would have been hard for him to notice. Ma Xiong asserted, "Something must have happened to Lu Jia." Yulong frowned and didn't say anything. Lu Jia was also an experienced blue metal holder. How could he leave the base without anyone noticing? Did he find some clues? If something had happened to him, where would it have happened? Everyone was discussing and analyzing the various possibilities. Suddenly, someone from the Bay Prefecture came in to report. The body of level 5 blue metal arrestor Lu Jia was found by the Tanju River. The county government has sealed off the area. Would you like to go and investigate? Lu Jie's body was by the Tanju River. The manhunt squad had been chasing Hell's Doorless in Bay County recently, so they were no stranger to Chuju River. It was a small river, a tributary of the Z River. It was said that in the early years, this river was rich in pearls. Many people made a fortune by picking up pearls. Many years had passed, and the pearls had long disappeared. However, the name Chuju River had remained. In terms of distance, it wasn't too far from their current location. At normal speed, they could make a round trip in half an hour. It was a wise choice for the Bay County government to seal off the area and protect the environment while waiting for the manhunt squad to investigate. In terms of finding clues, no one in Bay County could compare to them. However, no matter what, Lu Jie's death had cast a shadow over the manhunt squad. Did arrestor Lu die by the Tanju River, or did his body appear there after his death? Yulong asked the key question. The person sent by the Bay County government hesitated. Why don't you send someone to take a look? Why? Can't the blue metal arrestor from Bay County be sure of this? Why don't you take off your badge? Ma Xiong said unkindly. Although a blue metal arrestor from Bay County couldn't be compared to a blue metal arrestor from Bay County, he could still make such a judgment. However, this person didn't dare to confirm as he was afraid of taking responsibility. Since Ma Xiong forced him, he couldn't shirk responsibility anymore. He could only say, he died by the Tanju River. I know Lu Jie very well. He's not someone who neglects his duty. He must have found some clues. Ma Xiong volunteered. Lord Yu, I'll bring someone to take a look. Yulong shook his head. No, all of you stay here. I'll go take a look myself. The process of how Lu Jie died by the Tanju River was still unclear. However, they couldn't rule out the possibility that it was a trick by the Doorless Hell. After all, King Taishan, who was ranked 7th among the 10 kings of Hell, was now in the manhunt squad's hands. At the same time, they couldn't ignore the possible clues at the Tanju River. A blue metal arrestor lost his life there. Arrestor Yulong couldn't just ignore it. If Lu Jie's death was really related to the Doorless Hell, it would be very dangerous for Ma Xiong to lead a team there. Yulong went to the Tanju River alone to search for clues. The 4 blue metal arrestors from the outer building guarding the station was undoubtedly the safest choice. Even if the Doorless Hell really lured the tiger away from the mountain, with the 4 blue metal arrestors from the outer building, there was no need to worry that the station would be easily breached. Moreover, Yulong could come back to help at any time. Even the Bay County Magistrate's office wouldn't be stingy with their support once they sensed something. It was almost impossible to save King Taishan from the Doorless Hell. Don't forget that there was a Yin family in Bay County. The former Prime Minister Yin Ping was recuperating in the family land. If he was disturbed, in short, the arrestor team had the complete advantage. There was nothing to worry about. Yulong did things swiftly and decisively. He left as soon as he said he would. Ma Xiong also showed enough experience as a blue metal arrestor. After assigning everyone's tasks, he personally moved a chair and sat in front of the living room door. The other arrestors also quickly dispersed. Some were patrolling, while some were guarding the station. They were all well trained. However, from the beginning to the end, no one thought of going in to take a look at King Taishan. Jiang Wang thought for a while and quickly made a decision. When the others dispersed, he directly walked in front of Ma Xiong and said, "Arrestor Ma, I plan to leave today." Ma Xiong knew about the deal between Zheng Shi and Cheng Gongsheng. Hence, he wasn't surprised. He just glanced at Jiang Wang and asked now, "I don't have much time. I can't stay here any longer," Jiang Wang replied. Of course, this wasn't the real reason. King Taishan had been captured and Lu Jie had died. The arrestor team's pursuit of the Doorless Hell had entered an intense moment. It was as if a storm was about to come. Jiang Wang didn't want to be involved in this huge trouble. Hence, he decided to leave as soon as possible. Of course, it was more or less related to Lin Yuxi's gaze that seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He didn't want to expose any secrets. Ma Xiong thought for a while and didn't make things difficult for him. He only said, "When Lord Yu comes back, you can leave." Okay. Jiang Wang didn't bargain. He directly turned around and went back to his room to pack his things. He could afford to wait for half an incense stick of time, or even less. However, just as he stepped out of the courtyard, something strange happened. Ma Xiong was originally sitting upright on the chair. The morning sun cast a shadow below him. At this moment, a pale hand suddenly stretched out from the shadow. It was cold, icy, and silent. Chapter 559. Ma Xiong was not weak, since he could be sent out to chase after the doorless hell and become the core of the team, second only to Yulong. In fact, he was not weaker than Zheng Shi in the four great sacred buildings. He sensed the movement of the shadow. He said, "Good." He directly stomped on that hand. He was not afraid of the rats from the doorless hell. He was only afraid that they would hide and waste time. In order to hide their tracks, the doorless hell chose to scatter after escaping from Linzi. They wanted to make Bea lose sight of one thing and lose sight of another, so that most of them could escape from Qi. They did not expect Qi's reaction to be so fierce that he even sealed the country's border to capture and kill them. Sealing the country's border was not a small matter. The first thing Qi Miang did was to seal the Yang territory. When the doorless hell assassinated Zhao Xian, Zheng Shi did not even have the power to seal all the city gates of Linzi. The reason for such a mistake was that the doorless hell thought that they only killed a Yang person who surrendered to them. Qi Ting was angry, but he would not do such a thing for a killer organization. But in Emperor Qi's eyes, the case of Xiao Lianxiao meant that someone was challenging Qi's authority. He had to make someone responsible for this. For Zheng Shi, this was his only chance to atone for his crime. He had to seize it. That was why he even asked Yulong to come out. Under the search of the team, how much power could the doorless hell mobilize in Bea County? Ma Xiong did not believe that the remaining 9 kings of hell could all come here. Even if all of them came here, he believed that he could hold on until Yulong came back. Because before he attacked, he had already sent a message to Yulong. Yulong had already turned back. Yulong had not left for long. How long would it take for a Shun Xian to come back at full speed? 30 breaths? 20 breaths? Ma Xiong did not believe that the 4 green badge arresters of the outer building realm, who were all cultivators who had fought their way out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood, could be defeated within 30 breaths. So when facing the attack, his first thought was, the doorless hell was courting death. He stomped his foot down, and the hand in the shadow suddenly retracted. At the same time, Coroner Wang, who was wearing a pitch-black Yama mask, leaped up from the shadows behind a blue metal arrestor of Inner Mansion stage and reached out to grab his back. It was equally silent. However, Ma Xiong wasn't the only blue metal arrestor here. Almost at the same time that Ma Xiong spoke, the other 3 outer building stage powerhouses made their moves as well. Someone said, "Sneaking around and hiding your tracks, you deserve to be punished." A carving knife suddenly appeared in front of the Corner King. It was about to pierce through his mask and carve the mark of a crime on his face. Another person said, "Trespassing into a vital place without any duty, the punishment should be bin." Corner King's legs tightened, and he found it difficult to move. A sharp knife appeared out of thin air, and his kneecap was about to be gouged out. Then a cold and cruel voice rang out. "Running away from the law, conspiring to breed, you deserve to be punished." The Corner King felt a chill in his lower body as a small knife appeared at his vital part. These outer building stage blue metal arresters were all disciples of the school of legalism. The techniques they practiced were the 5 ancient punishments. Ma Xiong was one of the best among them. After missing a step, he stood up and pointed at the Corner King from afar. "Ignorant bandit, stabbing an official of the Qi. Your crime is unforgivable. You deserve to be punished with Dapai." The 5 ancient punishments were Mo by Gongbin. Dapai. They were face-piercing, nose-cutting, castration, kneecap gouging, and beheading. It was as if a guillotine had fallen from the sky. The Corner King's head flew up. After that, his mask shattered, and a black thief character appeared on his face. It meant that he was punished for being a thief. At the same time, his kneecap was gouged out. His legs went soft, and he couldn't stand. Between his legs, blood was flowing like a river. Even the Corner King, who was as strong as hell, died instantly after receiving the fourth of the 5 ancient punishments. All the arresters present breathed a sigh of relief. Only Jiang Wang's heart was still tense. He had seen the Corner King before and had personally experienced the Corner King's power. How could he have died so easily? Just as the Corner King received the 4th punishment and his head was separated from his body, a long-haired figure fell from the sky. He seemed to have suddenly fallen from the sun, and no one had seen him before. As soon as he appeared in the field of vision, he was already close. His landing point was the living room. It was the living room where King Taishan was imprisoned. Boom! The entire roof was broken, and the temporary array set up in the living room was smashed to pieces by his fist, which was wrapped in dark green light. Then Jiang Wang heard King Taishan's terrified voice. King Qingguang. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. The entire living room collapsed with the arrival of King Qingguang. Among the falling stones and broken tiles, King Taishan lay on the ground, desperately moving backward. After a whole night of torture, he was very weak, but his voice was sad and moving. Yingguan, who flew down, only glanced at him indifferently and pressed down with his palm. King Taishan's flesh and blood instantly turned to mush. Yingguan took the risk to come here, not to save him, but to silence him. You're courting death. Ma Xiong was furious and once again used the great punishment. How do you want me to die? Corner King's bloody head suddenly turned and stared at him. Ma Xiong paused. The blue metal arrestor of the outer building who executed the great punishment took a step forward, drew out his knife, and chopped the head into 2. At this moment, Yingguan had already turned into a dark green light and shot into the sky. Ma Xiong looked at the 2 halves of Corner King's head again and saw that it actually melted like snow under the scorching sun. The remaining corpse of Corner King also started to melt at the same time. At this moment, a figure shot over from the horizon. Yu Long, who had fully released his aura, landed in the courtyard, only to see broken walls and a pile of mush. Jiang Wang didn't know that Yu Long had already made arrangements for the situation. He even purposely left to create an opportunity for the great punishment. He had 2 arrangements. The first was on King Taishan. The second was on Ma Xiong. And Yingguan directly killed King Taishan, making his backup plan useless. But as long as Ma Xiong and the rest followed his arrangements and bought some time, he would still be able to capture the leader of the great punishment. But they were all at the peak of the outer building, and they were both in the 4 sacred towers, and it was 4 against 2. These people didn't even last for 20 breaths before Yingguan left. Yu Long was silent for a while, but in the end, he didn't say anything. But this silent reprimand was even more painful than a slap to the face. It was foreseeable that Ma Xiong and the rest would lose the trust of the arrestor god in the following mission. Ma Xiong looked back with an ugly expression. In his shadow, a pale hand lay quietly on the ground. It was Corner King's hand. For cultivators, injuries like broken limbs would deplete their vitality, but they could be reattached. The premise was that the broken limb was still there. Simple illusion or puppet techniques wouldn't be able to trick the experienced 4th-grade blue metal arresters. Therefore, Corner King really showed up and left his hand behind. That was why he was able to fool Ma Xiong and the rest and attract their attacks, creating an opportunity for Yingguan to kill King Taishan. King Qingguang's courage was astonishing, and his goal was very clear. Even though Yu Long claimed to be the best fisherman, he couldn't help but admit that this was an extremely courageous and cunning fish. He successfully bit the bait, but escaped. Chapter 560. No matter how the situation developed, Yu Long was back. According to the agreement between Jiang Wang and Ma Xiong, he could leave immediately. Jiang Wang didn't hesitate. Before he left, he didn't even say goodbye to Ma Xiong or Yu Long. Yingguan acted forcefully and killed King Taishan to silence him. It could be said that he had found a way to hide himself. But this also meant that the assassins of the Gateless Hell were in a precarious situation. King Taishan was captured. If there was a better choice, Yingguan wouldn't have taken the risk to come and silence him. It wasn't easy to make a time difference in front of Yulong. It was truly a gamble with one's life. And Yulong's captured prisoner was silenced. To him, this was undoubtedly an extremely serious provocation. This meant that Yulong's pursuit would be even more aggressive. The Gateless Hell had a group of top-notch assassins, and the pursuit team had God-descent experts. Once an all-out battle broke out, one could imagine how intense it would be. Jiang Wang didn't want to get involved. If he had the ability to suppress everyone, he might be able to take control of the situation. But now, it was better to play it safe. It was the same for choosing to leave in a low-profile manner. He didn't say goodbye because he didn't want to be unlucky and cause any unforeseen changes. With Yulong's status in the Baya, if he really wanted to use his status to recruit Jiang Wang to participate in the case, it would be hard for Jiang Wang to refuse. Anyway, Ma Xiong had promised him. As for the situation that might change in the future, Jiang Wang didn't consider it at all. He would let these people fight to the death. He would quickly settle the matters here, and then quickly go to CNN. Jiang Wang left in a low-profile manner. Not many people noticed him. If there were any doubts, Ma Xiong would explain it to them later. But to Jiang Wang's surprise, Lin Yuxi followed him and didn't say anything. "What's the matter?" After walking out of the base, Jiang Wang stopped and asked. "We work together, so I'll send you off," Lin Yuxi said. He just left after getting acquainted with him. How could this be considered working together? What did they work together for? To be in a daze together? "Thank you, but please go back." "Okay, I'll go back now," Lin Yuxi said, but his feet did not move. "By the way, before I leave, I have a question to ask you. Is it convenient?" "It's not convenient," Jiang Wang refused without hesitation. However, Lin Yuxi did not seem to have heard the rejection. Instead, he asked directly, "I noticed that when Coroner Wang was sentenced to death, Constable Ma and the others were somewhat relaxed. Only you were very cautious. You seem to be very familiar with the Coroner King." Her gaze seemed to sweep around, unintentionally following the question, but Jiang Wang knew that all his subtle emotions were being observed. It was best if she could observe them. Jiang Wang didn't hide his dissatisfaction. He looked at Lin Yuxi with an unusually serious gaze. "I know you have a strong ability to solve cases, and I also know that as a senior constable, you may habitually be suspicious of some people or things. But please restrain yourself. I'm not your prisoner." No matter how talented she was in solving cases and how many generations of famous detectives she had passed down, she still couldn't do anything about it. In front of Jiang Wang, her cultivation in the soaring dragon realm was her greatest weakness. As soon as Jiang Wang became stern, his powerful aura instantly suppressed Lin Yuxi, making it difficult for her to breathe. She was not afraid of Jiang Wang, nor did she think that Jiang Wang would do anything to her. However, the suppression of strength could not be changed by willpower. She had long known that this handsome young man's strength was terrifying. But it was not until this moment that she realized what it meant to be able to defeat Wang Yiwu and Lei Zhanxian in a head-on confrontation. Among all the constables in the inner mansion realm she knew, none of them could give her the pressure that Jiang Wang did. When Lin Yuxi's face turned red, Jiang Wang finally released his aura. "That's all I have to say," he said. Then he left without stopping. Jiang Wang's destination was Qiyang County's Nanyao City. Bei County was southeast of Linzi, while Qiyang County was southwest of Bei County. Bei County and Qiyang County were separated by a long and narrow Chaoshan corridor, which belonged to Chaoshan County. In terms of land area, Chaoshan County was considered a small county in the entire Qi. The only place that could be considered famous was probably the Chaoshan corridor. Jiang Wang directly flew over the Chaoshan corridor and landed after entering Qiyang County. He did not waste much time on the way. This was also the benefit of having a blue medal. Qi recognized the identity of a blue medal constable. If it had been a random person flying in the sky, they would have been shot down from who knows where. After not seeing Lian Ke for a long time, he seemed to have become uglier. The dark parts of his face were darker, and the red parts were redder. However, his cultivation had improved, and he was already in the inner mansion realm. He used the opportunity of forging masterpieces to push open the heaven and earth door and entered the soaring dragon realm earlier than Jiang Wang. As a weaponsmith who had forged the famous weapon, Long Yearning, there was no reason for him to be stuck in the inner mansion realm. However, he could not sense the seed of supernatural power, and he did not succeed in the heaven's secret realm. Therefore, he did not obtain the supernatural power. Although they had not seen each other for a while, they did not feel unfamiliar with each other. Their friendship had been tested, and it would not be washed away by time. At this moment, they were sitting opposite each other in Lian Kei's residence. Under Zhong Xian Sheng's secret guidance, Lian Kei had already obtained a certain amount of authority within the Lian family with the momentum of forging a famous weapon. He was now one of the most popular successors to the Lian family head position. This could be seen from his current aura, which was completely different from before. The reason why Jiang Wang personally came to South Distant City was the same as the reason why he had challenged Lei Zhanxian and Linzi. He had come to South Distant City to support Lian Kei with the momentum of his victory over Lei Zhanxian. When choosing the successor to the Lian family head, one's connections were very important. This was especially so for a blacksmith family like the Lian family, which was not strong enough. They often needed to rely on strong reinforcements to maintain the family's power. In the beginning, Cheng Gengsheng had planned to use Lian Kei as a hidden hand. He would secretly guide and support him, allowing Lian Kei to take control of the Lian family. Then, Lian Kei would use the Lian family's power to support him in his competition with Yung Genzuan. However, plans could not keep up with changes. The current situation was very different. Ever since Wang Yiwu was forced out of Linzi, Cheng Gengsheng did not need the Lian family support as much. Just as he had analyzed, his current focus was leaning towards his personal cultivation. Therefore, there was no harm in revealing his relationship with Lian Kei, which would be beneficial to both of them in the competition for the Lian family head position. It would definitely be more beneficial to Lian Kei, but there was no need to haggle over this. Lian Kei was not someone who did not know what was good for him. The Lian family naturally knew about the major events that happened in Linzi City. In fact, until they saw Jiang Wang with their own eyes, they did not know about the two battles that had caused a lot of commotion. Lian Kei still felt that it was somewhat unreal. The last time they met, although Jiang Wang had also defeated the 14th prince, Jiang Wuyong, and was quite impressive, the process was not that easy. Who would have thought that Jiang Wang was now able to fight against Wang Yiwu in the same realm, and even win? Lian Kei drank a cup and grinned. I knew you wouldn't disgrace Sauvignon Blanc. Jiang Wang also drank. How would I dare to disappoint Brother Lian's painstaking work? Thinking back to the days when they were forging Sauvignon Blanc in the sword furnace, it was indeed very tiring. The two looked at each other and smiled. Speaking of which, now that you have knocked on the inner mansion and removed the divine ability, you can start cultivating Sauvignon Blanc. You can also start nourishing Sauvignon Blanc. As Lian Kei spoke, he took out a small book with a fiery red cover, placed it on the table, and pushed it over. Cultivate? Jiang Wang glanced at it and saw the words written in earthworm-like handwriting on the cover. Famous weapon Sauvignon Blanc cultivation method. Did you write this yourself? He asked. Lian Kei nodded. I summarized some of the sword cultivation methods in the history of the Lian family, and it was specially designed for Sauvignon Blanc. I prepared it for some time and planned to give it to you together with the swallow-owl's beak. I didn't expect you to come here first. This kind of intention was indeed rare. However, Jiang Wang's face was full of disdain. I knew it. Ordinary people can't write such ugly words. Chapter 561. Do you still want to say that the words are like the person? Lian Kei's face darkened. He wasn't Cheng Gengsheng, so of course he knew what he looked like. His big hand was already quietly pressing on the book. It looked like he was going to take it back at any moment. The words are like the person. It really makes sense. Jiang Wang wasn't in a hurry. Look at these words. They go back and forth like a dragon. They have the momentum to ride the clouds. Ugliness is just the surface. Strength of character is the foundation. other than a tenacious talent like you. Who else in the Lien family can write with such momentum? Only then did Lien Ke release her hand in satisfaction, allowing Jiang Wang to take away the book. The appearance of a famed weapon could be called a famed weapon, but it wasn't completely a famed weapon yet. It needed to be washed by time, accumulated over time, and fought side by side with the wielder. It needed to improve together with the wielder. There are ways to speed up this process, especially since the Lien family was the holy land of weaponsmiths. They didn't lack relevant research. However, with Jiang Wang's previous strength, those methods were basically useless. Using the seed of a divine ability to nurture a famed weapon was one of the orthodox and grand methods. Lien Ke, as the creator of Sauvignon Longing, was the person who understood this sword the most besides Jiang Wang. He had specially made adjustments for Sauvignon Longing, so naturally, it was the most suitable nurturing method for this famed sword. Jiang Wang said that he disliked it, but he was actually quite anxious. He flipped through the book several times on the spot. It had to be said that although Lien Ke was ugly, his talent as a weaponsmith was astonishing. The entire nurturing method went from shallow to deep and was extremely brilliant. Even a layman like Jiang Wang could see how precious it was at first glance. All this time, Jiang Wang had only relied on Sauvignon Longing's sharpness in battle. He hadn't shown its uniqueness as a famed weapon. With this nurturing method, Sauvignon Longing would definitely be able to show its brilliance sooner. Lien Ke was unyielding and clumsy with words. Most of the time, he didn't speak much. Jiang Wang had been in contact with people like Cheng Gengsheng and Su Xiangxian for a long time, so he subconsciously bickered with them. Fortunately, the friendship between the two of them was there, so Lien Ke did not take it to heart. There is more. As Lien Ke spoke, he took out a square and slightly flat black iron box. The thing you wanted me to help you build has been completed. This thing is a little vicious, so you have to be careful with it. Only people like Lien Ke would be so direct with their words. Jiang Wang reached out and took it. Without looking at it carefully, he put it into the storage box. It's hard to deal with, isn't it? It's not easy, but it's not a problem for me. Lien Ke sighed with a little pride. Of course, forging is not a problem for you. You are Lien Ke. Jiang Wang thought for a moment, then said seriously, I won't use it casually. However, he subconsciously felt that this thing was very rare and did not want to waste it. After thinking about it, you're the only one who can handle it. Lien Ke opened his mouth and said, the more you fight for a position, the more complicated it becomes to see people's hearts. Now, I have to discount the words of others when I hear them. Only you, Jiang Wang. I can believe whatever you say. Back at the Lien family's ancestral worship ceremony, he had not hesitated to die to rectify his reputation. For such a person, the only thing that could subdue him was definitely not strength, money, or authority. To be acknowledged by a person like Lien Ke was undoubtedly a pleasant thing. Jiang Wang raised his cup to the window. My heart is like the moon. It's fortunate that you know. Under the same bright moon, Ying Guan stood at the top of a tree and faced the bright moon. His eyes were misty, and it was unknown what he was thinking. The masked corner Wang sat cross-legged under the tree. On the contrary, small fries like Su Xiaoxing had an easy time escaping. Blending into the crowd was like throwing a stone into the sea. Even the ripples would only last for a moment. When the crowd dispersed, they would disperse. On the other hand, these kings of hell were existences that the northern Yamen had ordered to capture at all costs, regardless of whether they were dead or alive. The king of hell, who had no door to hell, was the absolute top figure in the assassin profession. When it came to hiding their tracks, they were all experienced. However, in front of Qi's powerful pursuit force, they were still not enough. Even someone as powerful as King Taishan was caught red-handed. For everyone in the doorless hell, this was a very difficult time. In the past, it wasn't that they hadn't been hunted down by the country, but in the end, nothing was done. They couldn't do anything to the gates of hell. However, this time was different. Everyone realized that this time, it was really different. This time, it was Qi, the overlord of the eastern region, the strongest country in the world. However, Ingguan did not look depressed at all after being chased by the heavens and the earth. He stood at the top of the tree and was not afraid of being exposed. He even had the leisure to admire the moon. There wasn't a trace of dejection on his handsome face. "How is it? Is the new hand good?" Ingguan asked from the top of the tree. "It's just SOSO. After all, it's just the hand of an inner mansion stage cultivator." Corner Wong, who was sitting cross-legged under the tree, said with difficulty, "I don't remember what my original body was like. For most cultivators, if a severed limb could not be reattached, their combat strength would definitely be greatly reduced. Even if they could use some spiritual medicine to regrow a severed limb, it was not something that could be recovered in a year or two. Any expert who had reached his level would be able to do so. Every part of their body had been tempered and molded over a long period of time. Once that time and sweat was lost, it was not easy to find them again. However, Corner Wong's cultivation was special. Most of his limbs and flesh had been swapped with other people's bodies. This was also the reason why he could decisively sacrifice one of his hands to fight for an opportunity for Ingguan. Ingguan did not talk about this topic. Instead, he said directly, "Then, let's gather everyone." Corner Wong then moved his 10 fingers. After a series of dazzling gestures, he put his palms together in front of him and slowly opened them. A silver-white light screen appeared between his palms. The light screen shook slightly at first, then slowly stabilized. The light screen was neatly divided into 10 sections. 6 of them had human figures reflected in them. Ingguan and Corner Wong's figures also appeared, occupying 2 of the sections. In the remaining 4 sections, there were 4 people wearing the same mask as Corner Wong. They were King Songdi, King Bianqing, King Dushi, and King Pingding. This time, the entire Gateless Hell had mobilized 7 Yamakings for Qi's operation. Among the 10 Yamakings, only King Chujiang, King Yinluo, and King Zhuanluan were not present, although only 5 Yamakings actually took action at the little bridge in the end. Their preparations were definitely sufficient, and they even left 2 Yamakings with leeway. It could be seen that although the Gateless Hell seemed lawless, they were still quite cautious when it came to Qi. However, it seemed that this level of caution was far from enough. Perhaps they should not have taken on that business in the first place. There were only 6 figures because the 3 Yamakings outside of Qi could not cross Qi's great nation-protecting array to communicate with them. Especially in such a tense situation, it would almost directly expose their position. The last section belonged to King Taishan. The Yamakings of the Gateless Hell, who had been hiding all this time, finally gathered together in this way. As soon as he appeared, King Dushi said in a hoarse voice, "King Qingguang, do you think it's appropriate to ask for communication at such a dangerous time?" Chapter 562. Although the trip to Linzi this time was successful, the participants were all hunted down by the Qi Blue Metal. It was inevitable that there would be dissatisfaction arising from this. At the end of the day, the Gateless Hell wasn't an army. Furthermore, it had only been established for a short period of time. Ingguan and the other Yamakings were more like partners than anything else, so it was difficult to say how loyal Ingguan was to the other Yamakings. At this moment, King Dushi even began to question King Qingguang's decision. "Whether it's suitable or not, I have the final say." Ing glanced at King Dushi and said indifferently, "I said, suitable." No matter what, Ingguan still had enough prestige in the Gateless Hell that he had single-handedly created. Being swept by his cold gaze, King Dushi immediately shut his mouth. Emperor Song, whom Jiang Wang had met at the Shaolian Bridge, said in a low voice, "King Qingguang, why have you gathered everyone here? I've almost been discovered. I might not be able to hide for long. I'll have to move soon." Among the 10 kings of hell, King Songdi was ranked 3rd. At a time like this, perhaps only he and Corner Wong were suitable to speak up. However, he did not have any particular attitude and was merely stating the facts. Ingguan nodded slightly. "I've formulated a new plan of action." Still taking action? The 9th-ranked King Pingding interrupted. "Even the king of Mount Tai is dead. He was the weakest among all of the Yama kings involved in this operation, and his voice was filled with impatience and anxiety. Didn't you say that as long as we continue to hide, she wouldn't be able to seal us off for too long? Can't we just hide? It's already too late. Ingguan's voice was very calm. However, because of his calmness, it also sounded a little cruel. In front of Yulong, you won't be able to hide for long. It's better to stay still. The King of Equality shook his head, then nodded. I don't know. Under the powerful pressure of Yulong, he was already in a mess. It was not surprising that an assassin who had been wandering in the dark all year round would make such a decision. Corner King raised his head and glanced at Ingguan, who was on the top of the tree. He wanted to know what Ingguan meant. However, Ingguan remained calm. You don't trust me anymore? He asked. Because I killed King Taishan? You shouldn't have killed him, the King of Equality said in a low voice. He didn't say anything, did he? He didn't have any feelings for King Taishan, but when the rabbit dies, the fox grieves. The death of King Taishan inevitably increased his fear. Furthermore, he wasn't wrong. This was because if King Taishan had said anything, more than one of them would have been captured. He will definitely tell us, as long as the price reaches his bottom line. The bottom line might be to preserve his cultivation, or to preserve his life, or to give him a quick death. Ingguan's response was still very calm. The fact that he was captured alive is proof of his betrayal. Isn't that so? No matter how strong Yulong was, as one of the 10 kings of hell, he was still capable of committing suicide. The fact that King Taishan was captured alive meant that he still had a sliver of hope in his heart. It went without saying what that hope was. It was probably not that King Pingding did not recognize this point, but that under such immense pressure, it was difficult for him to maintain a calm judgment. Or perhaps he actually knew better than anyone else, but he wanted to use this opportunity to test Ingguan. In a place like hell, those who were too simple would not be able to survive. King Pingding was silent for a while, then lowered his head to show his submission. Thank you for being willing to explain to me. There's no need to thank me. Ingguan's tone was still calm. Compared to killing you, it's easier to explain. In other words, if the explanation is more complicated or it doesn't make sense, it might be another ending. In an organization like hell, it was a joke to talk about emotions and sacrifice. This was the style of this organization that Ingguan had decided on when he first established hell. Therefore, even if Ingguan took the risk to kill King Taishan, he was actually saving others. As the leader of the organization, he was shouldering the greatest responsibility and the greatest danger. However, he did not use this point to talk about it. Instead, he directly threatened King Pingding. In hell, this was more effective. There was total silence. Ingguan's gaze swept across them one by one, confirming that everyone understood his decision. Then, in the silence, he spoke again. First, I hope that all of you realize that we are not Qi's enemies. We are not worthy. Qi is very strong, but he also has many opponents. The country that we are in now cannot invest too much energy on us. However, just a little bit of attention is about to destroy us. Therefore, we have to take action and disrupt the situation. We have to let Qi's real opponents see the opportunity and stand in front of him. No matter how dangerous it is, we can only do this. This is because our only chance of survival is here. Ingguan's point of view was very clear. Because of this, the pressure from Qi's officials seemed to be heavier. The few Yama kings looked at each other and exchanged glances. But in the end, no one raised any objections. In the end, it was still King Song who spoke. What do you plan to do? Northeast of Beijun was Biwu County. Northwest of Biwu County was Ximen County. In short, they were all under the influence of Linzi. After King Taishan died in Beijun, the operation returned to the starting point overnight. However, this time, Yulong personally came up with a plan. He did not just reveal the strength of a Shunwang realm expert. Instead, he brought out the true ability that belonged to the God Arrestor title. Soon, the hunting team found traces of the doorless hell in Biwu County. Biwu County was named after the unique jade-colored parasol tree. Further northeast was Jinghai County, where the Gao family was located. Directly east was Tianfu City's Linhai County. When they reached Biwu County, they had to face one possibility. The killers of hell might want to sneak across the coast and escape to the islands near the coast. Unlike the other border cities, the long coastline was hard to seal off. Unless the state of Qi fully activated the Great Protective Array, it was impossible for them to fully activate the Great Protective Array for a few assassins who had nowhere to go. The expert in charge of the country protecting formation was only using the formation to monitor the country so that he could descend at any time. If they could successfully escape to the islands near the coast, Qi would no longer be the only one in power. At that time, they would be able to fly freely. As a Xinhuang realm expert, Yulong could not easily go to the islands near the coast. That would cause a reaction from the local powers. Hence, Yulong contacted Jinghai County and Linhai County to temporarily cut off the communication between the two counties and Biwu County. He turned the direction of Biwu County to the ocean into an iron wall. Yulong himself personally guarded the border between Jinghai County and Biwu County. He used a reverse net to cover the entire area. With his unique sensitivity, he sensed the restlessness of the killers of hell. If those killers from the doorless hell were to commit any major crimes during the pursuit, then he, as the dignified god of detectives of his generation, would lose all face. Hence, he maintained the intensity of the pursuit and continued to create pressure. On the other hand, he carefully controlled the situation and did not give them a chance to do anything. He chose to guard Jinghai County instead of Linhai County, which had a longer coastline. It was because of political considerations. The Jinghai Gao clan did not have a strong foundation and might not be able to stop the crazy killers of hell. The most favored concubine, noble consort Jing, was from Jinghai Gao. Considering the worst-case scenario, Yulong would rather see something happen to Tianfu City than Jinghai Gao clan. P.S. I thought the goal of the activity at the top of the book review section had been achieved. Only then did I realize that the goal was 20,000 starlight points. Now, I have less than 3,000 starlight points. Everyone, go and give Jiangwang a heart every day. 1 heart is 1 starlight point. Let's order 700 starlight points per day. If everyone points, it will be 600 starlight points per day. If you have enough fans, add a tag. 1 tag will give you 10 starlight points. Contributing memorabilia can also increase starlight points. All of these can be done for free. Come on, brothers and sisters, let's get busy. Give some face to Daki's heavenly son, supernatural intermansion, Qingyang Town's man, outstanding swordsmanship, Jiangwang. Chapter 563. Qiang County, Qi. On the second day in Nanyao City, Jiangwang was invited to visit Lien Kei's weapon forging. Every weaponsmith of the Lien family could only use the ancient furnace 3 times in their lifetime. They wouldn't open it unless they were confident or had high expectations. This had nothing to do with skill, cultivation, or status. It was the restriction of bloodline. The Liens were a family of weaponsmiths who specialized in forging, but they obviously had a deep understanding of bloodline. The life card was proof. With Lien Kei's status, the weapon forging furnace he used wouldn't be too bad. It was almost the best weapon forging furnace in the Lien family apart from the ancient furnace. And this time, there wouldn't be any ignorant people coming to disturb them. Needless to say, Lien Xiao was completely on Lien Kei's side now, and he was very grateful to Jiangwang. As for the elders of the Lien family, Nanyao City was only 2 counties away from Linzi City. Jiangwang's achievements in Linzi City had already spread. Even top families like the Chongxian family and the Bao family had to pay attention to this Qianjiao, not to mention the Liens, whose status was far lower and weren't good at fighting. In terms of fighting power, because the Lien family was one of the holy places of weaponsmiths, they had some old connections and could invite some strong people to help them in times of crisis. But the strongest person in the Lien family was only in the outer building state. But the outer building state was nothing to a Tianjiao like Jiangwang. He could reach it sooner or later. The patriarch, Lien Zhuping, personally came to Lien Kei Mansion to greet Jiangwang. He didn't say anything on the surface, but it was obvious that he wanted to apologize. For Lien Kei's sake, Jiang Wang didn't act arrogantly. Instead, he was very courteous and showed enough respect. As for the elder of the Lien family, Lien Luyue, who had targeted Jiang Wang, he didn't dare to show his face these days. He announced that he was going into seclusion as soon as Jiang Wang arrived in Nanyao City. If Jiang Wang had stayed in Nanyao City for a long time, his seclusion might have never ended. At that time, he was in the peak of the soaring dragon state, while Jiang Wang was only in the reaching heaven state. Now, Jiang Wang was in the inner mansion, while he was still in the peak of the soaring dragon state. Where did he get the courage to stand in front of Jiang Wang? They were no longer on the same level. The huge weapon forging furnace was in the process of awakening. Earlier, when he was forging Sauvignon Blanc, Jiang Wang knew that the Lien family's top-grade weaponsmithing furnaces were not easily opened, so he needed to wake up before using it. This process could not be omitted, so he could only wait. Jiang Wang could clearly feel that the heat in the furnace was slowly awakening. Not only did the Samadhi True Fire Abhijna become his strongest killing move, but it also allowed him to control fire elemental energy to become even more exquisite. He even had a new understanding of the fire source totem. Every time he studied the true Samadhi fire, he would gain new insights. The reason why the Divine Ability Inner Palace was known as another level compared to the ordinary Inner Palace was because it indeed had a huge and terrifying advantage. No matter where Jiang Wang went, he never slacked off on his cultivation. Now, as he felt the heat in the furnace, he verified his understanding of fire in his heart. On the other hand, Lien Kei sat on the ground casually. He was only wearing a calf's nose robe. His black and red upper body was bare, and his muscles were as hard as rocks. He was gnawing on a fruit that did not look good in his hand. The fruit was oval-shaped, and its skin was rusty. It did not look clean at all. However, he ate it very happily. With a bite, the juice splattered everywhere, revealing the bright red flesh inside. Have a taste. Lien Kei grabbed a fruit from the fruit platter on the ground and threw it over. He looked like he was throwing an iron ball at Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang caught it. It was quite heavy, but it was unexpectedly soft in his hand. Ironberry. It only grows in the belly of a volcano. It's very delicious. Lien Kei introduced. Jiang Wang half believed and half doubtfully brought it to his mouth and took a light bite. He immediately spat it out. His mouth was full of jerkiness. Ha ha! Lien Kei laughed. Tear the skin off before eating. I really like the texture of the skin, but you might not like it. He obviously did not say it on purpose. It was impossible to guard against a one-track mind like Lien Kei's teasing. If it was Chung Gung Sheng, Jiang Wang would not easily try it even if he shouted himself hoarse. He really did not guard against Lien Quebec. When friends were teased, it was impossible for them to get angry. They could only blame themselves for not being as good as others. The skin of the ironberry was very easy to handle. With a gentle tear, the entire skin would fall off, leaving only the bright red flesh. Its appearance was much better. When Jiang Wang took a bite before, there was a faint sweetness. However, the dry taste of the skin was too strong and covered it up. That was why he was willing to try it again. At this time, when he took a bite of the flesh, the texture was soft but not dense. The taste was sweet but not greasy. It was indeed a top-quality product. Jiang Wang took a few bites and suddenly felt that he had bitten something. The warm juice flowed through his mouth and instantly filled his mouth with fragrance. Inside the bright red fruit, there was actually a ball of silver juice. No wonder it was called ironberry. With this ball of silver juice, the fruit's taste was simply peerless. Jiang Wang finished it in a few bites and felt a rare sense of satisfaction. At his level of cultivation, it was very difficult to satisfy his appetite. It could be seen how good the taste was. At this time, Lien Kei threw another one over and said with a smile, try taking a big bite of the skin and directly biting into the juice. You'll find a different flavor. I'll trust you again. Jiang Wang's eyes were filled with threat. He took a big bite as told. This time, it was indeed different from before. The strong astringent taste was neutralized by the juice, fusing into a wonderful feeling. It was very special and had a very layered texture. In this mixed flavor, the flesh itself became more fragrant and sweet. It was hard to say which way of eating was better. Both ways of eating were wonderful. He only ate two. He had already fallen in love with this fruit. Lien Kei's recommendation was not in vain. Not bad. Prepare 100 of these for me, Jiang Wang said directly. Lien Kei stretched out his big hand and subconsciously covered the fruit plate. There were only two left. This fruit is not easy to pick. It's not found in every volcano. I only have a quota of 10 iron berries a month, and I'm only giving you one because you're here. Where can I get 100 for you? I have a friend who's an outstanding disciple of Green Cliff Academy. He's very resourceful. Jiang Wang guided him patiently. Do you know what it means to withdraw in advance? Aren't you tired of eating so many at once? Lien Kei frowned, but still said, I'll think of a way. I'll prepare them for you when you leave. He did not mention that the iron berries could increase a person's fire elemental affinity in addition to being delicious. They were very valuable. Although the Lien family's martial arts were average, they were astonishingly wealthy. That was why they could give the iron berries to their direct descendants every month. To Lien Kei, there was no need to say these words. If Jiang Wang liked them, he would think of a way. Good brother. Jiang Wang was not stingy with his praise. You can't eat the iron berries for free. Lien Kei got up and walked to the weapon furnace. Come and test your fire. We'll refine it for 10 hours today. Jiang Wang was speechless. Lien Kei used to be such a simple person. Cheng Gongsheng secretly taught him how to compete for the position of patriarch of the Lien family. In the end, he became like this, unwilling to suffer any losses. Chongxian Fat was really a troublemaker. Sigh. Jiang Wang could not help but sigh. Brother Lien Kei, you're so vulgar now. I still miss the simple and honest you. Your tone is so familiar. Lien Kei said faintly. Good. They were both people who had been poisoned by Cheng Gongsheng. Boom! A huge explosion suddenly sounded. The two people who were chatting in front of the weapon furnace were immediately alerted. What's that sound? Jiang Wang wanted to confirm whether it was Madame Lien who made the noise. Lien Kei had already put out the fire in the weapon furnace and was flying out. Something happened. P.S. Calf nose brush, Cohen shorts. Chapter 564. Lien Kei soared into the sky, as if there was a furnace in his body that rumbled and activated, emitting a shocking amount of heat. This was Nanyao City, the Lien family. No matter what happened, Jiang Wang would stand by Lien Kei's side without any hesitation. In order to support his friend, Jiang Wang activated his inner mansion and Tongtian Palace at the same time, not holding back the powerful aura of the inner mansion. At the sword furnace, Lien Kei's voice was anxious. The Lien family's most precious possession was undoubtedly the 3 ancient furnaces. They were treasures that the ancestors of the Lien family were not willing to lose when they fled in their early years. They were history and inheritance, and also one of the things that allowed the Lien family to become the holy land of weaponsmiths. And the sword furnace was the most recent famous weapon, the yearning fruit. When the sword was being forged, Jiang Wang had stayed with Lien Kei in the sword furnace for a few days, so he was very familiar with the environment. The sword furnace is protected by the sword array. Nothing will happen so quickly. Jiang Wang comforted him as he flew. His hand was already on his sword. No matter what happened at the sword furnace, it was not a bad thing to display his strength in front of the Lien family. It was very beneficial for Lien Kei to expand his influence. Where did this scoundrel come from, daring to cause trouble in my Lien family? Lien Kei was furious and started to roar from afar. Jiang Wang also released his aura, showing off his ability. His sword form was already in motion, but seeing from afar, he quickly let go of the sword hilt and pulled Lien Kei. Don't go to your death. Not only did he stop Lien Kei, he also pulled Lien Kei back. In his line of sight, a handsome man with long hair was floating in the air. The forest of swords outside, the The sword furnace was originally the sword array that protected the ancient furnace. At this moment, it was fully activated, and the sword aura soared into the sky. And that handsome man's fist was wrapped in green light, and he punched the forest of swords without any fear. Who else could it be other than Ingguan? The strongest fighting power in the Lien family was only at the outer building realm, and the outer building realm of the Lien family was famous for its weaponsmithing. It was impossible for them to be the opponent of a fierce person like Ingguan. So Jiang Wang did not say anything and pulled Lien Ke back. Lien Ke was still struggling. He was mad. "Don't pull me." He actually dared to touch the sword furnace. I must kill him. It was needless to say how much the Lien family treasured Gu Lu, but Jiang Wang would never let him throw away his life. Ingguan's fist landed. With just one punch, countless broken swords exploded cleanly and were smashed into pieces that filled the sky. The remaining broken swords were barely able to maintain the sword array, but anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was impossible for them to withstand a second punch. Lien Ke immediately stopped struggling. He was indeed unyielding and unafraid of death, but he was not a fool. The combat power displayed by Ingguan's punch was far from what he could reach. Even if he risked his life, he might not be able to harm a single hair of the other party. Jiang Wang immediately recognized the situation and chose to avoid it. However, Lien Ke's yelling still attracted Ingguan's attention. At the same time that Ingguan threw a second punch at the sword formation, his gaze swept over this side. At that moment, a strong pressure pressed down on Lien Ke's body, and a strong murderous aura overturned him. Lien Ke's muscles tensed up, and he almost thought that he was about to be killed. However, Ingguan only glanced at the sword formation and broke it with a single punch. The ancient furnace that seemed to have walked out of history with a sense of antiquity was exposed in front of him. Lien Ke was burning with anxiety. Jiang Wang, who was beside him, felt a chill in his heart. He knew that Ingguan had already noticed him. This ancient furnace has a history of 1,000 years. If you damage it, the Lien family will not rest until you are dead. From another direction, the Lien family's patriarch, Lien Zhuping, flew over with a group of elders. Because Jiang Wang and Lien Ke were in other weapon forging furnaces and were closer to this place, they arrived first. This involved the ancient furnace and the foundation of the Lien family. Therefore, the Lien family had mobilized almost all of its forces. Lien Zhuping himself was only at the peak of the inner mansion, but there were 2 outer mansion experts among the elders. Ingguan smiled faintly and did not take Lien Zhuping's threat seriously. "I came here to slaughter the Lien family and break the ancient furnace to leave a deep impression on those big shots in Linzi. However, I've changed my mind." There was a hidden meaning in his words, but only Jiang Wang understood. Ingguan glanced at the ancient furnace and turned around. "Store this ancient furnace here. I'll use it when I'm free." "Is the Lien family a place where you can come and go as you please?" Lien Zhuping was furious. Whoosh! Ingguan suddenly turned around and pounced on Lien Zhuping. His fist, surrounded by green light, smashed down on Lien Zhuping's head. Lien Zhuping attacked in a panic, and so did the Lien family elders who were with him. Among them, there were 2 outer realm elders. One of them cast out a furnace that scorched the heaven and earth, and the other threw out a huge hammer that was as powerful as a mountain. It cannot be said that they did not work hard or were not powerful. However, the conflict started in an instant and ended in an instant. Ingguan did not move. The illusory furnace was destroyed, and the giant hammer was smashed into a lump of iron. The group of elders staggered while Lien Zhuping vomited blood and flew backward, spraying a trail of blood. Shock and horror. "You can't even take one punch. How can you fight me, Ingguan, to the death?" Ingguan glanced at them coldly, turned around, and left. This time, no one dared to make a sound. He really came and left as he pleased. Lien Ke was angry and helpless, and Jiang Wang was also troubled. He sat alone in his room at night and decided to leave Nanyao as soon as possible. He did not want to get involved in this matter, but some things were just so coincidental. He came to Nanyao just as Ingguan happened to choose the Lien family as his target. From Yingguan's words, it was obvious that he wanted to stir up a storm in the Qi territory and create a commotion. As one of the 5 holy lands for weaponsmiths in the world, the Lin family was very famous. However, they were not known for their combat strength, so they were undoubtedly a very good target. If they really destroyed the Lin family, it would be enough to cause a huge commotion in Qi territory. Of course, at that time, Qi would not only send Yulong. Qi sent Yulong, not because Qi could only send a cultivator of this level, but because Yulong was enough. Once Yulong was proved to be not enough, if the doorless hell still dared to make a big fuss, stronger cultivators would naturally appear. Therefore, Yingguan needed to control the scale. How to disrupt the chase team's line of sight without intensifying Qi's reaction. This was very difficult to balance. After leaving Beijing, Jiang Wang did not receive any news about the doorless hell. It was impossible for anyone in the chase team to pass him information. Therefore, he did not know that the chase team had been lured to Biwu County. Jiang Wang was only thinking that King Qingguang had appeared in Qian County. What about Coroner Wang, who had always been with him? At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. "Can I come in?" Jiang Wang had expected the owner of the voice. Therefore, although he had mixed feelings, he still said, "Please come in." His vision blurred, and Yingguan appeared in the room. He found himself a tea stool and sat down. He turned over a teacup and lazily poured himself a cup of tea. Jiang Wang did not say anything. He only waited for Yingguan to explain his intentions. "We're even now, but you owe me another one." Yingguan took a sip of tea and said casually. During the day, he did not mind killing Lin Ke while he was at it. He only chose to stop because he saw Jiang Wang. He even stopped his actions against the Lin family. Yes, Jiang Wang did not deny it. "This tea is good. Your friend is very considerate," Yingguan casually commented. He put down the teacup and turned to look at Jiang Wang. "I've said before that for people like me, there's no tomorrow. I may not be able to wait for the future. Therefore, if there's anything you want to return, it's best to return it immediately. Since you've agreed, you owe me a favor. Now, you have to help me do something." Chapter 565. Yingguan had his own set of principles when doing things. He didn't seem to believe in friendship or promises. Instead, he was more like a merchant cultivator, abiding by the principle of fair trade. Of course, this kind of fairness was also very simple and crude. It was all up to him. For example, after he saved Jiang Wang's life from Su Shi's hands, and Jiang Wang found someone to help him sneak into Linzi through proper channels, he never mentioned it again. He thought that they were even. Even if Cheng Gengsheng's purpose wasn't pure, and he even took the opportunity to complete his plan, he didn't seem to care. From this point, it could be seen that he was a person with a very clear goal. As long as he achieved his goal, he didn't care what methods he used or whether he was used by others. Now, Jiang Wang owed him a favor, so he asked him to return it immediately and do something for him. This was very Yingguan. "What is it?" Jiang Wang asked directly. "Send me away from Qi," Yingguan said. Not killing Lin Ke and letting the Lin family go. Was this favor worth taking such a big risk to help a criminal wanted by Qi escape? Everyone might have a different answer from their own point of view. Jiang Wang thought seriously and said, "I'll try my best." He couldn't guarantee that he could do it, because if this matter was so simple, Yingguan wouldn't have asked him for help. But he promised that he would try his best to do this. This was Jiang Wang's promise, and it was powerful and resonating. After the attack during the day, the Lin family made a big fuss and invited a lot of outside help. They even asked Qian County to send experts to guard the place. Sneaking into the Lin family's territory under such tight security. For Yingguan, it wasn't worth mentioning. If Jiang Wang sold him out at this time, even if he didn't die on the spot, he would at least lose half of his life. If he delayed until Yulong came, the consequences would be even more worrying. But Yingguan seemed to have no taboos. After getting Jiang Wang's permission, he spun his teacup and stopped. "Then it's up to you." The next day, Jiang Wang said goodbye to Lin Ke and left Nanyao City. From there, they turned west and headed towards Rizhao Prefecture. Before leaving Qi for the Yun Nation, of course, he had to visit his fief and meet the people in Qingyang town to arrange some things. Moreover, it was on the way. According to the time, Zhu Biqiang should have returned to the fishing ocean building by now. There probably wouldn't be any changes in the future. He would still be dispirited. However, he did not know what Dugu Zhao's current cultivation level was, and whether he had constructed the qi cycle. Yingguan attacked Madame Lien and came and went as he pleased in South Distant City, which made Lien Kei's mood very bad. To everyone in the Lien family, this was a humiliation, especially to Lien Kei, who was the successor of the family. But it only made him more determined to revive the Lien family. In front of Yingguan's strength, Madame Lien's weakness was exposed. The life tablet had once continued the existence of the Lien family, but now it had imprisoned the future of the Lien family. If this continued, he would be devoured by someone sooner or later. However, no matter how bad his mood was, he still delivered the 100 iron berries promised to Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang carefully stored them in his storage box. In order to cover up Yingguan's following, Jiang Wang rented a carriage in the name of cultivation and planned to take the carriage to Rizhao Prefecture. When he arrived at Yang County, he would be at the western border of Qi. At that time, it would not be a matter of one carriage. He had to think of another way. It was worth mentioning that after Pao's carriage and horse company verified his identity, they made excuses. They either said that the carriage was broken or that the coachman was sick. In short, they were resolute in not renting a carriage to him. Obviously, after receiving a huge compensation, Pao's carriage and horse company put Jiang Wang on the list of people they would not accept. But other carriage companies did not have the ability to travel across the country. In the end, Lien Kei came forward and bought a carriage. With the generous reward, there were many coachmen who were willing to travel long distances. Jiang Wang picked a steady one and left South Distant City. In fact, the most reliable method was to control the coachman with his soul. That way, there would be no risk of him accidentally leaking information. However, Jiang Wang was not at the level where he could trample on mortals like ants. Fortunately, with Yingguan's cultivation, hiding with one intent was also not what this ordinary coachman could discover. Separated by a curtain, the coachman controlled the direction of the carriage, but he had no idea that there was an extra person inside. Jiang Wang and Yingguan sat across from each other in the carriage. They had nothing to talk about and cultivated separately. With Yingguan around, Jiang Wang did not cultivate the fire source totem from the Void Continent. Instead, he focused on his inner palace. He had just opened the first inner palace. Although he had obtained the most valuable treasure, there was still a lot of room for improvement. For example, after reaching the inner palace realm, he would be able to engrave an instantaneous Dao art in each inner palace. The threshold for mid-grade A-rank Dao arts was the inner palace realm. For example, Jiang Wang was already quite familiar with the 8 tones Flame Sparrow and the Flame Sparrow Flower, and he could shorten the time required to form hand seals to 3 breaths. However, instantaneous release was a qualitative change. Jiang Wang deliberated for a long time, but in the end he decided to put it aside for the time being. These 2 Dao arts he had developed himself were not bad and possessed considerable power, but they had been exposed too many times and could be easily countered. Even if they could be upgraded to the instantaneous level, they would not be very useful in high-level battles. Unfortunately, Dao arts of this level were treasures to any power and would not be given out so easily. Sheng himself did not have one, let alone one for Jiang Wang. Old Master Chongxian had given him a hint, but he represented the Zhenggenjia, not the Chenggung Sheng. Jiang Wang could only refuse. At all times, he would only stand from the perspective of Chenggung Sheng, not the Zhenggenjia. Therefore, to Jiang Wang, he did not have many choices. At this stage, he could only accumulate more merit and choose some Dao arts with potential to deduce. This journey back to the Yun Nation was not only to return home, but also to cultivate. Jiang Wang had a noble title and a blue medal, so his journey was naturally unimpeded. However, when he was leaving Qian County, he was still stopped by someone. The soldiers guarding the pass had to check the inside of the carriage. Even if the person in the carriage was a rank 5 blue metal constable, they would not simply let him pass. Jiang Wang knew that Qi's response to Yingguan's appearance in Nanyao City had arrived. The strict inspection at this moment was proof. Did Yulong follow him? Fortunately, Jiang Wang was prepared. He took out the invisibility cloak from his storage box and handed it to Yingguan. Yingguan studied it briefly and knew the function of this item. Good stuff. He praised and then sighed. Unfortunately, it's useless to Shunlin, otherwise, he did not say otherwise. He only put on the invisibility cloak and disappeared from sight. Jiang Wang lifted the curtain and said to the soldier guarding the carriage, "Do you want to enter the carriage for inspection?" "No need, Lord Jiang. I'll just take a few glances." The person in charge of this was a transcendent cultivator. He had sharp eyes. After a few glances, he knew that the carriage was very ordinary and there was no hidden compartment. After the inspection, he cupped his hands. "I'm just following orders. Please forgive me." In terms of nobility, Jiang Wang was a man from Qingyang town and a member of the Deqi aristocracy. In terms of position, Jiang Wang was now a rank 5 blue metal constable and was also a rank 5 official. Jiang Qingyang had defeated Wang Yiwu and then defeated Lei Zhanqian. It was difficult for these transcendent cultivators of the state of Qi not to know of his reputation. Therefore, their attitude was very good. "It doesn't matter. You all adhere to your duties. This is the foundation of Deqi's prosperity." Jiang Wang waved his hand and lowered the curtain. "Let him pass." The soldiers shouted outside the carriage. Chapter 566. With the cover of the invisibility cloak, there was no danger along the way. The checks between each city were very strict. From Qian County to Rizhao County, they had to travel through 10 counties in a straight line. Jiang Wang spent the entire journey in cultivation. With King Qingguang, who could bring danger to him at any time, there was no boredom at all. He was more worried than worried. After entering Rizhao County, Jiang Wang sent the coachman back and gave the carriage to him. The coachman had traveled a long way and received a handsome reward. When he returned, he even got a carriage for free. He was overjoyed and bowed to Jiang Wang to express his gratitude. Looking at the carriage slowly moving away, Yingguan, who had taken off his invisibility cloak, said, "Look, people are easy to satisfy. This world is vast and boundless. It's enough for everyone to eat their fill. But why are there still so many people who are unhappy?" Jiang Wang replied casually, "I've heard that people are the hardest to satisfy. The more they have, the more they want. People are the easiest to satisfy, but they are also the hardest to satisfy." Yingguan skipped the topic. "We're already in Rizhao. What's your plan?" "It'll be difficult to leave the country now." Jiang Wang shook his head. "I'll go back to Qingyang County to take a look." The journey was slow and leisurely. "Now that we're in Rizhao County, we're not going back to Qingyang Town. Instead, we're leaving the county in a hurry." When he was in Bei County, he felt that Lin Yuxi was suspicious of him. Now that he was involved in Yingguan's matter, he had to be more careful. "You've thought it through." Yingguan nodded slightly, indicating that he agreed with Jiang Wang's arrangement. The Bei government had many ways to track them down. One of them relied on the power of the nation. It was also the simplest and most effective way to deal with outsiders. This method sounded mysterious, but it was actually very simple. The cultivators of Qi County, the people, and even the grass and trees were all part of the Qi County. For the omnipresent power of the nation that manifested in every aspect and every industry, the assassins from hell were undoubtedly outsiders. After the country was under martial law, although the nation-protecting array was not activated, it had already borrowed some of its power. Any of their actions would leave behind traces of being rejected. Therefore, they had to rely on the spies they had hidden in Qi to cover their escape. Otherwise, he would have been discovered long ago. Doorless Hell didn't have a long history, even though they had made many preparations to assassinate Zhao Xian. However, there couldn't be too many spies hiding in Qi. This was also the reason why Yingguan wanted to kill King Taishan to silence him. Jiang Wang, who had the title of nobility of Qi, was a legal existence in this country. He was also a member of the ruling class of Qi. Something as mysterious as the power of the nation would only accept him and not reject him. Guan, who was by Jiang Wang's side, was able to get some cover. Both of them were well aware of this. Guan still put on the invisible cloak and followed Jiang Wang to Qingyang town. Jiang Wang couldn't see his tracks, and Guan hid his aura very well. But he knew that she was right beside him. By the way, you said that the invisible cloak is useless against God Descent Masters? Jiang Wang asked. Its material and weaving are perfect, enough to deceive vision and blend into the environment. But in the sensing range of a God Descent Master, its meaning is almost nothing. Guan said, because a God Descent Master is a god within the range of psychic sense. According to Guan's words, in front of a God Descent Master, the invisible cloak blending into the environment was indeed useless, because the environment was controlled by a God Descent Master. Maybe you're not far from a God Descent Master. Jiang Wang's words were sincere. He had seen Guan fight several times and deeply felt that he was powerful. He was far from being comparable to an ordinary Outer Tower Master. Guan shook his head. I realized my potential too early. If I followed the prescribed order, it would be hard to see a God Descent Master. Although he was shaking his head and saying the cruel truth, his expression was not depressed at all. There wasn't even a trace of regret. He was firm in his choice and had walked all the way until now. And it was hard to see a God Descent Master. For him, how many difficult things were there? After reaching Qingyang town, I'll think of a way to get a caravan to open a trade route to Zheng or Rome. When the time comes, you can mix in with the caravan. With the invisible cloak, your chances of sneaking in are very high. It's not like every border city has a God Descent Master overseeing it, and that God Descent Master must personally investigate me. Jiang Wang said as he walked, an overly complicated plan is not feasible. I have the invisible cloak, so I'll use it to my advantage. This is my initial train of thought. Guan did not approve of this plan, nor did he deny it. He only said, there's no need to be too anxious. Right now, most of the Yama Kings are in Biwu County. Yulong has also been lured there. The border will be relatively lax. Jiang Wang paused for a moment, then continued walking. He had long since seen the scene of Guan mercilessly killing King Taishan. It should be said that he was mentally prepared to use other Yama Kings to create an opportunity for himself to escape. So he said nothing. But the subtle changes in his mood were detected by Guan. His voice asked, you seem to despise this kind of behavior. This is your own choice. They're also your subordinates, and I don't know them. I have no right to judge, and I don't want to, Jiang Wang said. Then it's still despise. Are you the kind of person who cares about other people's opinions? Guan chuckled, then said nothing more. As soon as he stepped into Qingyang town, Jiang Wang felt a kind of comfort. This was not a purely psychological feeling, but a real sense of reality. This was his fief, protected by Qi's laws and recognized by all parties. In theory, he had the highest authority and freedom here, except for the Qi Emperor. Of course, if the commandery that governed this place sent down an official document, he would still have to lower his head. But in essence, it could also be said that the Qi Emperor's power suppressed him. Every blade of grass and every tree here recognized his rule. Because of the recognition of this fief, Jiang Wang could display more strength in Qingyang town than in other places. However, with his current strength, this kind of weak enhancement was already dispensable. When he left Qingyang town, there were still wildflowers blooming on the roadside. When he came back, it was already winter and frost killed all the grass. The townspeople he met on the way looked good, so Jiang Wang could roughly know how Dugashao was doing. Jiang Wang deliberately walked around the town a few times, and after he had some understanding in his heart, he went to the town. According to the arrangement, when he left Xingyang town, Dugashao was in charge of the daily affairs of the town, and Fangchong was in charge of the transcendent powers. If Zhang Hai stayed, he would be the conventional transcendent powers. If he left, he would leave. He was not included in Jiang Wang's core team. In his own fief, Jiang Wang was rarely relaxed. When he walked into the town hall, a bearded, middle-aged man was sunbathing on a recliner in the courtyard. Who else could it be but Fong Chong? Time seemed to have stopped for him, and everything seemed to have never changed. Jiang Wang deliberately looked up at the sky. At this time, there seemed to be no sun to bask in. This guy was probably just too lazy to change places. Jiang Wang was about to tease him, but the man on the recliner suddenly stood up. His eyes sharpened, and he looked around as if he was looking for something. My flying sword told me it sensed danger. This was the first sentence Jiang Wang said to Fong Chong after returning to Qingyang Town. Chapter 567. The solipsism way of the sword was indeed a top swordsmanship passed down from generation to generation. With Fong Qian's soaring dragon realm cultivation, he could faintly detect Yin Guan's existence. After all, Yin Guan was also a top outer building realm cultivator, and he was wearing a camouflage outfit. Jiang Wang patted him on the shoulder and said, "He's a friend of mine. Don't make it public. He won't hurt anyone here." On the surface, he smiled proudly and said, "How is it? Do you feel Lord Zhang's power?" News of this conversation might not have spread. The green cards of the state of Qi might not have been so pervasive. But Jiang Wang still had to be cautious and not make any mistakes. Even if it would eventually be exposed that he helped Yin Guan escape, he had to at least make sure it wasn't exposed because of his own carelessness. He could accept failure after trying his best, but he couldn't accept his own death because of carelessness. Heaven's will was unpredictable, but he had to do his best. Fong Qian didn't look very smart, but in fact, he was smart enough. Seeing Jiang Wang like this, he knew it wasn't appropriate to discuss it in public. At the same time, he was very lazy. Knowing that it was Jiang Wang who brought him here, he immediately relaxed. He drooped his dead fish eyes and leaned back on the recliner again. It's none of my business whether he's strong or not. He yawned and muttered. Jiang Wang really wanted to throw a flame of jealousy at him to see if he really didn't care or if he was jealous in his heart. As the saying goes, not returning to one's hometown is like walking in brocade clothes at night. Wearing brocade clothes, of course, he had to walk on the main road and show off in front of people. In Linzi, he wouldn't have such thoughts. But Qingyang Town was his fief, which meant something different to him. And Fong Qian was his friend. Jiang Wang inevitably had the temperament of a teenager. He wanted to gain the respect of people close to him. Although he didn't show it on the way here, he had been looking forward to it for a long time. But now, Jiang Wang looked at Fong Qian, who was still sleeping, and couldn't help but gritted his teeth. He was now famous in Tianjiao of Qi. Why wasn't this guy excited at all? Didn't he admire him at all? He had a pair of dead fish eyes and a dead fish face. He thought, "It's been a long time. Why don't we compare notes?" He thought hatefully. Just as he was thinking, a crisp voice suddenly rang out. "Lord Jiang." Her petite figure almost jumped out of the hall and stopped in front of Jiang Wang. Du Guxiao looked up at Jiang Wang, the worship in his eyes almost overflowing. "You've finally returned to Qingyang Town. Everyone misses you. You're amazing. I heard about your deeds in Rizhao Prefecture. Everyone says you're a peerless genius. Things are finally back on track." Sure enough, this was the scene of returning home in glory. She was still so cute. Ahem. Jiang Wang coughed reservedly. "I came back to take a look. You must come back often." Dugu Lil impatiently said this before turning around and shouting, "Lord Jiang has already returned. Why haven't all of you discerning eyes come out to welcome him?" Actually, after hearing the commotion, the others were also heading out. However, Du Guxiao was already a transcendent, so he was much faster than them. A group of town hall officials who were a few steps behind swarmed out. "Lord Jiang is back. Qingyang Town is proud of you. You're the god of Qingyang Town. Lord Jiang, I've always remembered your teachings. I'll hang your portrait on my bed. You're the #1 person among the younger generation in Qi." All right. Jiang Wang was quite comfortable at first, but the more he listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly stopped them. "Go about your own business. Don't you have anything to do? Look at all of you. What Qingyang Town's god? What Qi's #1 person among the younger generation? If this spread out, there would be a lot of trouble. Shinto had long declined. Now, those who cultivated Shinto had to be conferred by the country. Without official conferment, they were all evil gods. Jiang Wang didn't cultivate Shinto, so it didn't matter. But the number one person among the younger generation, that was really a tight move. Most of these town hall officials had fought with Jiang Wang in the past. They had seen with their own eyes how Jiang Wang uprooted heaven and earth, smashed his opponent to death, and defeated thousands of troops. They were very close to him, so they didn't have any scruples when speaking. And when Jiang Wang started to chase them away, they immediately left without any hesitation. At this time, there was another greeting. Lord Jiang. It was Zhang Hai. Jiang Wang thought that he had left, but he didn't expect him to still be there. But it didn't make much difference whether he was there or not. He was just a cultivator who didn't care where he went. Oh, it's Zhang Hai. Jiang Wang nodded to him encouragingly. After all, he was working in his fief. Jiang Wang could handle this kind of situation. After that, he asked Dugu Xiao, Xiao, is my yard still empty? It's always been there. Do you want to go now? It's not right to crowd here. It's affecting the town hall's work. Let's talk in my yard. Jiang Wang rushed forward and shouted, You come too. Zhang Hai didn't care what he said and covered his ears. No. Jiang Wang grabbed him. Hurry up. What are you talking about? What do you two want to talk about? Let me sleep. I didn't sleep for 12 hours today. I'm so sleepy. Brother Jiang? Lord Jiang? Jiang. Let go, let go. In the end, he was dragged away. Dugu Xiao followed behind him with a bright smile on her face. She even jumped up and down a few times like a little child. She didn't look as calm and strict as when she was in charge of town affairs. Zhang Hai stood in the yard and watched the three of them leave. He had mixed feelings. Was it a pity? Of course. Now that Jiang Wang was the most popular person in the kingdom of Qi, everyone knew that a mere Qingyang town would not be his final destination. His future was infinitely bright. As long as he didn't die early, he would definitely become a big shot in Qi. Don't you see that when those town officials flatter him, it's like a deluge of heavenly flowers? Why? No one was a fool. They all knew that following Jiang Wang was beneficial and had a promising future. Dugu Xiao, an ordinary maid, was now a transcendent being and was in charge of town affairs. Xiang Qian was obviously deeply trusted. Whatever Jiang Wang did in the future, would he not do without him? As for Zhang Hai, he was the first one to work with Jiang Wang together with Xiang Qian. Was there any difference between now and then? Nothing at all. It wasn't that Jiang Wang treated him badly. He was treated well in Qingyang town, no different from other places. But that was the problem. There was no difference. The difference between the Dugu Xiao of today and the little handmaiden of that day could be said to be like heaven and earth. He had long been a transcendent being, but he was no different from before. It was all because he chose to protect himself in the battle outside Qingyang town. Dugu Xiao, an ordinary girl, chose to fight. His choice back then led to the current situation. Life's encounters often led to a completely different fork in the road in a single thought. Forget it. It's no big deal. Let's make pills. Zhang Hai was indeed a salted fish that was hard to distinguish between Xiang Qian and him. He soon enlightened himself. Why make the peerless pill, humph? Chapter 568. It had been a long time since he had returned to this courtyard, but it was bright and clean, not at all like a house that had been empty for a long time. Obviously, people often came to clean it. Jiang Wang walked into the courtyard and nodded with satisfaction. Let's talk in the living room, he suggested. Dugu Xiao trotted into the room, found tea, and set up the teacups. She actually cleaned the courtyard herself. She came to clean it every 3 days, no matter how busy the town was. It was just that she wouldn't take credit for it in front of Jiang Wang. She always considered herself as Jiang Wang's maid. Even though she was now a transcendent and had been handed over to Qingyang town, she was a prominent figure in the whole of Jia City. It was a matter, of course, for a maid to clean up the master's room. When the window of the side bedroom moved, Jiang Wang knew that Ying Guan had already gone into the room to rest. This was a reminder to him. It also meant that he wouldn't eavesdrop on their conversation. It shuffled listlessly forward, as if it did not feel it at all. but Jiang Wang knew that he could sense it. The swordsmanship that had been left at the pinnacle of the era was very terrifying. The three of them sat down in the living room. Usually, there were four of them, but Zhu Biqiong's exploitation contract had expired. She had returned to the offshore islands, so Jiang Wang felt a little regretful that he couldn't say goodbye in person. They had worked so hard together for Qingyang Town, so there was a certain foundation of affection between them. But Zhu Biqiong had returned to the offshore islands to enjoy life, so there was nothing to worry about. In the offshore islands, even if the sea fishing tower wasn't the most powerful force, it was still one of them. Hu Xiaoming was dead, and his revenge had been avenged. She was born in the sea fishing tower. As long as she cultivated step by step, her future wouldn't be bad. Jiang Wang sat casually, listening indifferently. One could see part of a person's personality from their sitting posture. For example, Dugu Xiao only sat halfway on the chair. She could stand up at any time. When reporting the town's affairs, her eyes always paid attention to Jiang Wang's expression. She was rather cautious. She was definitely loyal to Jiang Wang, but she also wanted to please him, because Jiang Wang was the one who controlled her fate. On the other hand, Fang Qian turned the chair into another bed. His entire body was like a puddle of mud as he slumped onto the chair. Jiang Wang had no doubt that he would hear him snoring in the next moment. Jiang Wang simply listened to the report. He trusted Dugu Xiao, but this kind of report was still necessary. His trust in Dugu Xiao and his need to supervise Dugu Xiao's authority were not contradictory things. The former was a personal emotion, while the latter was a necessity of the rules. Don't underestimate this rule. It's the foundation of any force. Jiang Wang had struggled in the huge vortex of the Zhonginjia and Qi for a long time, so he was no stranger to these things. Not bad. After Dugu Xiao finished his report, Jiang Wang nodded in approval. You did well. Dugu Xiao smiled happily. Receiving Jiang Wang's praise was better than anything for her. After Jiang Wang finished talking to Dugu Xiao, he reached out and slapped Fang Qian's thigh, waking him up from his heavy sleepiness. Fang Qian suddenly woke up and glared at Jiang Wang. It's just that his eyes that were always half asleep didn't have much lethality. What about you? What did you do during this time? Jiang Wang deliberately played with his fingers. I have to pay you Dao Yuan stones every month. Fang Qian said lazily. You don't want me to do anything. For the position of responsibility given to him by Qingyang Town, his greatest contribution was that nothing happened. Jiang Wang certainly knew this, but he still wanted to find fault with him. Wipe your saliva. Fang Qian reached out and wiped it, only to touch nothing. Only then did he realize that he had been played. He sighed. You're really bored right now. Jiang Wang smiled. Then I'll find something for you to do that's not boring. Thank you very much. Fang Qian raised his hands in opposition. Qingyang Town is very small, and I'm also very useless. It's better to be bored. Being bored to death is the spark of the world. Jiang Wang understood his hint. A hidden powerhouse by Jiang Wang's side absolutely couldn't have anything good. Fang Qian had a lot of feelings for Qingyang Town, otherwise he wouldn't have stayed here. He had already left when the solipsism of the sword was exposed. He reminded Jiang Wang that Qingyang Town couldn't afford too much risk. Jiang Wang didn't immediately express his opinion, but looked at Dugu Xiao again. Xiao, how's your cultivation now? That's really not good. Fang Qian gave a rare criticism. With his personality, how others were had nothing to do with him, and he didn't care. Earlier, when he was mingling in the mine, he worked with Zhang Hai for so long. Zhang Hai fiddled with his broken pill every day. With Fang Qian's hidden strength and vision, would he say anything more? But Dugu Xiao, this girl, had fought side by side with him. And how could he forget the expression on Hu Xuanzi's face before he died? So after Zhu Biqiong left, he took on the heavy responsibility of guiding Dugu Xiao's cultivation. If such a decadent person like him said that she wasn't good, then there was really nothing good to write about. Jiang Wang heard this and was stunned. What do you mean? He knew Dugu Xiao well. This little handmaiden was by no means a fool. Even because of her previous painful experience, she was actually very thoughtful, and there was a fierce force in her bones. She was willing to grit her teeth and work hard. She was definitely not a person who slacked off like Fang Qian. There is a saying that heaven rewarded the diligent. Even if her talent wasn't good, Dugu Zhao's cultivation shouldn't be too bad. Fang Qian was about to say something, but he glanced at Dugu Xiao and swallowed his words. Finally, he said in a muffled voice, "Ask her yourself." At this time, the joy on Dugu Zhao's face was swept away and replaced by fear. She quickly lowered her head, not letting her instantly red eyes be seen. She was really scared. She was very scared that she was useless. She was very scared that she would lose her value to Jiang Wang. She was very scared that she would be abandoned again. It was because he discovered her mood that Fang Qian couldn't say anything more. "What's wrong?" Jiang Wang laughed. "Fang Qian has been crippled like this. It's been so long, but he hasn't made any progress. I see that he's still sleeping soundly. What are you doing?" He eased his voice and made his posture more peaceful. "If you have a cultivation problem, hurry up and say it. A genius whose name shakes Linzi is here. Why don't you seize the opportunity to solve it?" Fang Qian glowered at him in dissatisfaction, resentful that he was pulled out to be a target. But Dugu Xiao wasn't so panicked all of a sudden. Her heart, which had been in a mess, steadily calmed down. She was even quite satisfied, because she knew that to Lord Jiang, she wasn't a completely insignificant character. Lord Jiang was even willing to put in the effort to appease her. "My minor heavenly cycle has been completed, but it's terrible," Dugu Xiao said in a low voice. "Big Brother Xiang said there's no future to speak of." Oh, Jiang Wang's curiosity was piqued. The minor heavenly cycle was the condensation of a cultivator's willpower. It could also be seen as a cultivator's initial exploration of the Tao, as well as their ideas and even answers. The minor heavenly cycle was only the foundation. After laying the foundation, it was just a step forward. Generally speaking, after the initial construction of the minor heavenly cycle, one would slowly fill in the details and even expand it. How could one declare that there was no future to speak of at the minor heavenly cycle stage? But Jiang Wang didn't have any reason to doubt Fang Qian's vision. Fang Qian possessed an era's peak inheritance. Although Fang Qian's cultivation had now been surpassed, his knowledge of cultivation absolutely wasn't inferior to Jiang Wang's. "What's your minor heavenly cycle condensed?" Jiang Wang asked. "It's..." Dugu Xiao lowered her head, her voice like a mosquito. All right. Seeing her like this, Jiang Wang said, "Relax a little. I'll see for myself." Dugu Xiao didn't understand what he meant, but she still obediently let herself relax. Then in the next moment, a black snake suddenly wormed its way into her heaven-span palace. Dugu Xiao was in the midst of her panic when she suddenly heard Jiang Wang's voice. "Don't be afraid. It's me." The black snake stopped in Dugu Xiao's heaven-span palace and spoke in human language. To some extent, this was also a kind of invasion. But Jiang Wang wouldn't hurt her. Dugu Xiao's heaven-span palace seemed a little narrow to Jiang Wang, but this was the size of most ordinary cultivators' heaven-span palaces. The only thing that surprised Jiang Wang was that he didn't feel any resistance from the heaven-span palace itself in this heaven-span palace. Perhaps Dugu Xiao was too weak, so the slight resistance wasn't worth mentioning. Jiang Wang didn't think too much about it. After comforting the master of this place, the black snake raised its head and observed the place. The construction of every cultivator's heavenly cycle had to start from themselves. It was the past, and it was also the future. It was a conclusion, and it was also a prospect. For example, Jiang Wang's heaven-span palace was divided into 3 layers by 9 starry river spirals. The 3 starry river spirals formed a minor heavenly cycle, which was the sun, moon, and stars. The sun, moon, and stars were the heavens, the mountains and rivers were the earth, and the vast sea of people was the human. The 3 minor heavenly cycles formed a major heavenly cycle, which represented the heavens, the earth, and the human. The concept was grand and rather impressive. And in Dugu Zhao's heaven-span palace, 3 Tao spirals were suspended in the dome, rotating endlessly. It seemed that the minor heavenly cycle had been established. But Jiang Wang couldn't see anything special about the heavenly cycle concept. He only felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Between the spirals, a thin and small earthworm was crawling with difficulty. This was Dugu Zhao's Tao, vain, true spirit. There was no spirituality to speak of, not to mention defending the Heavenspan Palace and expelling the invading Jiang Wang. There wasn't even the slightest reaction. Jiang Wang transformed his face from the black snake and flew to the dome of the Heavenspan Palace, observing Dugu Zhao's minor heavenly cycle from a close distance. But then, a change occurred. Perhaps it was due to Jiang Wang's soul. A shadow appeared on each of the 3 Tao spirals at the dome of the Heavenspan Palace. It was the manifestation of Dugu Zhao's concept. They weren't the sun, moon, stars, gold, silver, or copper. However, each of the illusory figures was a human figure. One of them faced the left, another the right, and the one in the middle faced Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him, because the 3 figures in front of him were all himself. Chapter 569. After exiting Dugu Zhao's Tongtian Palace, Jiang Wang finally understood why Xiang Qian said that Dugu Zhao's minor circulatory cycle had no future. Using his own minor circulatory cycle as an example, the next step was heaven, earth, and man. The concept was lofty and vast. As for Dugu Zhao's minor circulatory cycle, it was Jiang Wang, Jiang Wang, Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang didn't even know how to condense her major circulatory cycle. Jiang Wang, Jiang Wang, Jiang Wang, Jiang Wang, Jiang Wang. There were so many Jiang Wangs, but the key was that it was not harmonious. How could such a minor circulatory cycle develop? How could it have a future? Jiang Wang was still racking his brains for a solution, but he didn't know that Xiang Qian's face was full of shock. The Heaven and Earth Gate was a barrier to cultivation, and it also firmly isolated cultivators from the Tongtian Palace. To some extent, it was a kind of protection for low-level cultivators. Dugu Zhao's Heaven and Earth Gate was not open, and the Tongtian Palace was completely sealed. Jiang Wang entering her Tongtian Palace was a very dangerous thing for her. If he crashed into Dugu Zhao's Heaven and Earth Gate from the outside, her cultivation path would be destroyed. However, Jiang Wang entered with his soul Taoist technique, so it was different. It did not involve the power of primordial Tao. It affected Dugu Zhao from another level, bypassing the Heaven and Earth Gate. In essence, it was the manifestation of the soul. With Xiang Qian's knowledge, of course, he knew what this meant. "Are you so strong now?" Xiang Qian muttered subconsciously. "I've always been strong." Jiang Wang casually replied and asked, "You're guiding Xiao Xiao's cultivation. Why did she build such a minor circulatory cycle?" Xiang Qian's dead fish face instantly returned. "How would I know she would do this?" Dugu Zhao explained weakly. Sister Biqiong and Brother Xiang both said that the minor circulatory cycle is the gathering of one's will. It could be the greatest and most magnificent thing in one's imagination, or it could be the smallest and most real thing. My actions and my thoughts. It's the answer to one's heart. Her voice became softer and softer. In my heart, the greatest is master. Jiang Wang didn't know what to say. He only did what he felt was right, and made the choice that he believed he should make. But he didn't know that many people's lives had changed because of him. Tens of thousands of people in Qingyang town had survived because of him. Because of him, Dugu Zhao, a little maid who would be tortured to death one day, had become a transcendent cultivator who could decide the affairs of Qingyang town. The other maid who had been with her had jumped into the well on a cold morning. At that time, Dugu Zhao had personally witnessed that scene, and that scene had cast a shadow on her that would never be erased. And Jiang Wang crippled Gu hung on the spot, which would forever solidify his greatness in her heart. The 3 Jiang Wangs in Xiao Zhodiyan represented her admiration, worship, and gratitude. How am I going to cultivate in the future? Genius, whose name shakes Linzi, quickly solved this small problem. Qian Qian deliberately provoked him, retaliating against his previous rudeness. Jiang Wang smiled calmly. What's so difficult about that? In the Tongtian Palace, he ran to the netherworld candle and crazily shouted, Jiang Yin, Jiang Yin, Jiang Yin. Come out quickly, there's an emergency. Hurry up, I've been watching. Jiang Yin said impatiently. He found that he was now more and more used by Jiang Wang as a tool, or a book like an atlas. He had never seen Jiang Wang care about how to find the white bone holy sun. Jiang Yin usually didn't ask about him, and only came to talk to him if there was a secret or a cultivation problem that he didn't understand. Occasionally, he would try to tempt him, but this guy was slippery and never gave him a chance. Therefore, he became less and less talkative. He only hid in the netherworld candle and cultivated hard, afraid that one day Jiang Wang would suddenly catch up with him and drive him out of the room. Then what do you think we should do in this situation? Her chi cycle realm is rare. Jiang Wang seemed to be indifferent to Jiang Yan's disdain, or rather, he felt it but didn't care. Who had ever seen a landlord embarrassed when collecting rent? What's so rare about that? You're the inexperienced one. Jiang Yin jabbed at him rudely, but he still had the self-awareness of being a tenant. So he explained, this situation is somewhat similar to the divine path, but she treats you as a god. The stronger you are, the more feedback she can borrow. Many of the white bone path's believers condense a small chi cycle, which is the white bone holy sun. He paused and changed his tone to one of disdain. But obviously, with your current strength, you're far from being able to support a powerful small chi cycle. Jiang Wang was stupefied when he heard this. So there was such a situation in the divine Tao. Come to think of it, after all, there was an era in history when the divine path flourished. The divine path of the past must have been full of flowers and paths. This wasn't rare. Of course, being inexperienced didn't stop Jiang Wang from speaking loudly. It was too unreasonable to be so cowardly in his own heavenly palace. Just tell me what to do. Jiang Yin choked. He had no choice but to lower his head under someone else's roof, but he still gave a solution. The white bone path has a secret method that can bestow power on believers based on the soul imprint. I made some slight adjustments to allow the believers to seek power from their own faith. Of course, there's a huge limit, and the amount of power that can be sought is limited. It just so happens that you have a divine ability seed now. Using the wonders of the divine ability and leaving a soul imprint, it should be enough to support this little girl's progress. When she opens the heaven and earth gate and truly transcends worldliness, the large chi cycle will no longer be a problem. Although the large and small chi cycles are given many meanings, in essence, they're just building the path to the heavens. After the heavens are cleared, the path can be ignored. This was the first time Jiang Wang had heard that the large and small chi cycles were just building the path to the heavens. After the heavens were cleared, the large and small chi cycles could be ignored. But thinking about it carefully, he had to admit that Jiang Yin was right to a certain extent. His current focus was on the inner palace, while the soaring dragon realm's focus was on the worldly isolated island and the fog of obscurity. Although his large and small chi cycles condensed his Tao, not everyone's Tao path would end from beginning to end. Change was the natural state of the world. Jiang Yin was indeed knowledgeable, but Jiang Wang felt uncomfortable at the mention of the white bone path. I won't use the white bone secret art again. I won't let you use it either, Jiang Yin said unhappily. It'll be very annoying if another me appears. He said sarcastically, I've sorted it out and eliminated the parts related to the white bone god. I've eliminated the possibility of contamination. Following his words, a small black booklet fell out of the netherworld candle and landed in Jiang Wang's hands. This secret technique wasn't too complicated. Jiang Wang opened it and took a look before memorizing it. What's the name of this secret art? Jiang Wang asked. Whatever. Jiang Yan's impatient voice came from the candle. Fang Chong was still mocking him. If you say it's not difficult, then come up with a solution. How did you learn to brag after a trip to Lindsay? Was it that fatty who taught you? Jiang Wang sneered. Xiao, is this a big problem? It's quite common in the era of divine Tao. You're the only one who's surprised. Chapter 570. Jiang Wang kept talking about an era when Shinto was flourishing, saying it was nothing to be surprised about. Xiang Qian was stupefied by his words, deeply feeling that his knowledge was shallow. But he had nothing to be embarrassed about. If he had little knowledge, then he had little knowledge. If he was inferior to others, then he was inferior to others. Being a waste was very comfortable. Lying flat and letting Xiang Qian mock him made people lose the pleasure of mocking him. Jiang Wang knocked on the armrest in dissatisfaction. Xiao, you go to your work first. We'll deal with your little heavenly cycle later. Although Jiang Yin gave a solution and also a secret technique, Jiang Wang still wouldn't rashly try it without verification. After all, it involved the level of the soul. Both he and Duga Xiao needed to be cautious. Xiao complied and left. Jiang Wang looked at Xiang Qian, no longer joking. When I went to Linzi, you said that the main character in the story had reached a point of hopelessness. I told you to wait and see in Qingyang town. Now Chenggung Sheng has already broken free from his hopeless situation, and Yung Ganzuan has become completely alone. His subordinates have been wiped out, and Wang Yiwu has been defeated by me. He can't set foot in Linzi for 3 years. When we left Qingyang town, could you have imagined this kind of result? Xiang Qian was silent for a moment, then said, "You guys are amazing. You know I'm not saying this to show off." Jiang Wang was full of sincerity. Compared to when I left, your cultivation hasn't changed at all. Your inheritance and your talent shouldn't be like this. I have no right to interfere with your choice, and I can't decide your life for you. But as a friend, I want to ask you, do you really plan to go on like this? Forever like this? Xiang Qian's expression was somewhat unnatural, and he covered it up with a yawn. Isn't this good? Even Zhang Hai dreams of refining a peerless divine pill and reaching the heavens in a single bound. Although his path isn't feasible, he at least has that kind of expectation. What about you? Don't you have anything in your heart that you want? Something hot? I'm very hot, and I'm working very hard. Xiang Qian said half-heartedly, I adjust my breath every few days. What can I do if I can't break through ignorance? I've seen your sharpness. Can the fog of obscurity stop your solipsistic way of the sword? Jiang Wang said, forward. What's stopping you is not the fog of obscurity, but your wavering heart. Qian Jin closed his eyes and leaned back. You won't understand that kind of despair. You didn't experience it for yourself like I did. Jiang Wang, I envy you, but I can only envy them. His attitude was bleak, and he had no fighting spirit to speak of. At that time, the brief display of sharpness in order to protect Qingyang town seemed to be a flash in the pan. The despair in his heart would never disappear. Jiang Wang was silent for a while, then said, Pack up and come with me tomorrow. I'm going on a long trip. Perhaps sensing Jiang Wang's mood, Xiang Qian did not slack off this time. Instead, he asked, Where are we going? To a place where no one has been for a long time, Jiang Wang said. He stood up and walked out. Qian Jin was still curled up in the chair, but he had already opened his eyes and looked at Jiang Wang's back. From his point of view, this young man's posture was tall and straight, walking with a straight back. It was no different from every time he turned around in the past. But this time, Qian Jin felt a kind of loneliness. I've also been drifting for a long time. Jiang Wang walked out of the living room and walked toward the side room where Ying Guan was hiding. At this time, only Qian Jin was in the courtyard, so there was no need to deliberately hide anything. Walking to the door, he had already collected his emotions, so he bent his fingers and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Ying Guan didn't make a sound, but the door had already opened silently. I have something to say to Ying Guan. It needs to be kept secret, Jiang Wang said in the Tongtian Palace. Then, without waiting for Jiang Yan's response, he directly spread out a sea of spiritual flowers and surrounded the netherworld candle. At this time, Ying Guan had already taken off his stealth clothes and was sitting alone on a chair against the wall. He was probably thinking about something before, and his frown had not disappeared. Seeing Jiang Wang come in, he only cast an inquiring look. I have something to ask you. Jiang Wang went straight to the point and directly explained little Dugu's situation. In this situation, do you think there's any way to solve it? Ying Guan thought for a moment, and said, "When she opens the heaven and earth gate, there will be no problem. People are always growing, and the majority of people can't be firm on their initial path of Tao. There are very few people who could determine their own heart at the beginning of cultivation. I'm just afraid that she can't open the heaven and earth gate. After all, this kind of small circulation lacks power. Her small circulation is not weak at all. Emotions are a very great power, and reverence is one of them." Ingguan shook his head and said, "The weak one is you. When you are the one who is believed in, you are not enough to support a strong, small circulation." Jiang Wang didn't mind this degree of criticism, because what Ingguan said was the truth. He directly asked, "So, is there any way to solve it? Maybe if she learns spells from me, she can touch the power of emotions. Starting from herself, she can increase the power of the small circulation." Ingguan indifferently gave a solution, but he used an even more indifferent tone and said, "But I won't teach her." As expected, some problems were problems only because they weren't strong enough and couldn't see far enough. Jiang Yin and Ingguan could easily see the essence of a problem and had the ability to solve it. Unfortunately, Ingguan was unwilling to help. Jiang Wang didn't ask why, nor did he ask what price he would have to pay if Ingguan changed his mind. Because a person like Ingguan had his own reasons for everything he did, and he wouldn't easily change for anyone. And he might not be able to afford the price Ingguan wanted. "I have a secret method here. Help me see if there are any problems," Jiang Wang said. Jiang Wang took out the secret method, which meant that he had a solution, but he wasn't completely sure. For someone of his strength, this was very hard to imagine. Ingguan's curiosity was clearly aroused, though his voice was still calm. "Okay," he said. Jiang Wang looked around, but didn't find a pen and paper. He didn't bother to go to the study to get it. He used his finger as a pen, fire as ink, and silently wrote the secret method Jiang Yin had given him in the air. Fire patterns burned in the air. One after another flame characters appeared, bright and undying. Your control of the fire elemental Tao energy can be considered to have reached a higher level." Ingguan casually praised. Jiang Wang silently finished writing, then asked, "How is it?" "A very good secret method," Ingguan said as he studied it. "This secret method is very suitable for your little attendant. It should be able to solve her problem completely." Ingguan didn't ask about the origin of this secret method. He only looked again, then said, "I don't see any problems. Every step is very reasonable. But if you think there might be a problem, then the problem can only be in this part." As he spoke, he reached out and drew a circle in the air. A green line wrapped around the flame character. Jiang Wang looked and found that it was the part of the secret method regarding the soul brand. "Brand?" Jiang Wang asked. Ingguan nodded. "I can't completely understand this brand, so I can't guarantee its safety. I can only say that if there's a problem with this secret method, it will only appear in this part." He had said it very clearly, but Jiang Wang still confirmed it again. "Other than that, there's no problem?" Ingguan's tone was certain. "No." Jiang Wang stretched out his hand and wiped away the flame character in the air, leaving no trace behind. "P.S. I've also been wandering for a long time. For 10 years, I've been deeply indebted to you, and you've been my teacher and friend through life and death." Gu Jingguan's Golden Thread Melody. Chapter 571. Logically speaking, Ingguan had already seen it and could not find any problems. It was just that he was not completely sure about the imprint. It should be said that he could use this secret method without worry. After all, Ingguan was far stronger than him, and his judgment was more accurate. However, Jiang Wang had never lost his vigilance against Jiang Yin. No matter what kind of person he was, whether he was the so-called other me, or had helped him many times, there was a fundamental problem. Jiang Yin also wanted this body that he was born with. Jiang Yin could not compete with Jiang Wang, so he turned his target to the white bone sacred body. Before this core problem was solved, Jiang Wang would never let his guard down. He could not ignore Duge Zhao's matter, but Jiang Wang would not use the secret method if he could not be sure that it was completely clean. Fortunately, Ingguan had already eliminated the other problems, and he still had the great illusionary land. Jiang Wang could completely erase the part of the secret method related to the imprint and then deduce it on the Dao development platform to complete a brand new imprint. If even the imprint was changed, Jiang Yan's hidden methods would be useless. Now, in the great illusionary land, Jiang Wang's blessed land had fallen to the 37th ranked Mount Shifeng. He had officially fallen out of the 36 blessed lands. He worked hard enough, and his cultivation speed was very fast. However, the foundation that Zhuo Guanglia left behind was still defeated. This caused him to often feel ashamed whenever he faced Zhuo Guangshu. Even though he was very clear that Zhuo Guanglia was Zhuo Guanglia and Zhuo Guangshu was Zhuo Guangshu. His Dao development platform was still on the second level, but with the glory of being the #1 soaring dragon of the great illusionary land, it now had the effect of 3 levels. After returning to his bedroom and entering the great illusionary land, he used up all his accumulated skills, and this secret method had new imprint. Perhaps the secret method that Jiang Yin took out was already deduced perfectly, or perhaps the level of 3 levels of the Dao development platform was still not enough. Regarding this secret method, the Dao development platform did not change much other than the new imprint. The new secret method eliminated all hidden dangers, and Jiang Wang could finally use it without worry. This was because it involved the seed of a divine ability. By borrowing the power of a divine ability, it would leave a soul imprint in Dugu Zhao's mini-circulatory cycle, allowing the mini-circulatory cycle she constructed to possess actual power. Therefore, Jiang Wang named it the Divine Imprint Technique. For now, it was just a name to scare people. The essence of the God Seal art was actually to borrow the mysteries of the divine ability and imitate the seed of the divine ability by using the soul imprint. This allowed Dugu Xiao, who was using Jiang Wang as a minor circulatory cycle, to slightly touch that portion of the rule power. Speaking of which, it was actually similar to Yingguan's method. Yingguan's method was to let Dugu Xiao draw strength from his own reverence. The divine Madrum method was similar, but it was through the imprint left behind by Jiang Wang's divine ability seed that made it feasible. Either way, Jiang Wang didn't need to use any of his power. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to descend. After familiarizing himself with the divine seal technique, Jiang Wang summoned Dugu Xiao again. "Relax, I'll cast a divine seal on you." Dugu Xiao immediately closed her eyes and relaxed her mind, giving up on her instinctive resistance. She had no reservations about Jiang Wang and trusted him wholeheartedly. Jiang Wang still entered Dugu Zhao's heavenly palace through the spirit concealment snake. He sensed his own divine ability seed and began to cast the divine seal art. The divine seal art wasn't complicated, but the process needed to be done very carefully. Time passed bit by bit. When Jiang Wang finally let out a sigh of relief, a flame-shaped red imprint appeared in the middle of Dugu Zhao's minor circulatory cycle. Dugu Zhao's minor circulatory cycle revolved around it and obtained support from it. Only then could his foundation be considered stable, and he could take a step further to look at the great circulatory cycle and the scenery beyond the heaven and earth gate. Ignoring Dugu Zhao's joy, Jiang Wang directly closed his eyes after leaving her heavenly palace and began to recuperate. Casting the divine seal art wasn't difficult for him, but it was a delicate matter. The consumption was no less than that of a battle of the spirit. He had long since developed the habit of maintaining himself in peak condition. Moreover, he was in his own territory and didn't need to worry about anything, so he immediately began to recuperate. Dugu Xiao stared at him in a daze for a while before quietly leaving. The next day, Jiang Wang finished his morning cultivation and went to find Yingguan. The caravan has already been organized. Zhongshuan Sheng has a dashing trading company under his banner. It mainly operates in the Yang lands, so he and I are in charge of it together. We have also opened up a trade route in the Rhone country. As one of the owners, it's reasonable for me to follow the caravan out of the border, Jiang Wang said directly. However, although we have the invisibility cloak, we still can't withstand a detailed investigation. If the guards use the simplest method to guard against the camouflage technique, we won't be able to avoid them. The so-called simplest method was to enter every carriage and check. The invisibility cloak could hide one's tracks, but it couldn't make one's body disappear into thin air. As for casting secret arts, such as the invisibility cloak, it was also impossible. Casting a secret art would trigger a reaction from the formation, and this was the case for any Dao art. The invisibility cloak relied on its material and grandma little annoying's magical weaving technique, so there was no need to worry about this. Jiang Wang's tone was grave. One of the blue metal constables has already suspected my familiarity with the doorless hell. Therefore, this trip is quite dangerous. You'd better contact someone to provide support. If the situation isn't good, then we can only try to force our way in. Yingguan was still sitting in the same position as yesterday. It was unknown if he hadn't moved from his seat all night. When he heard this, he smiled. Then you're in great danger. I might be able to force my way in, but you definitely can't do it right now. Jiang Wang shook his head. If you're discovered, I won't force my way in with you, because I don't know how you managed to sneak into my caravan, and I'm also very surprised. At the same time, I'll make a move against you. Yingguan wasn't angry. He just smiled. That's a good idea, but I'm afraid it won't be enough to clear your suspicions. How could there be such a coincidence? It just so happened that I appeared at the border with you, and it just so happened that I was in your caravan. Although there are many people entering and exiting the border every day, my caravan is a big target. It's conspicuous and can hide people. And because of my identity, it's not easy for me to be interrogated. Therefore, it's very possible that you chose to sneak into my caravan. It's completely explainable. Of course, as you said, suspicion is inevitable. Jiang Wang said, but it's just suspicion. You can't do anything to me. I'm from the Tianjiao of Qi. I'm a legitimate hereditary noble. I can't betray Qi easily. Qi doesn't want me to betray Qi either. This is what I've earned. The head of the Seven Stars Tower, the first in the Soaring Dragon realm, the inner mansion of the remarkable ability that defeated Wang Yiwu and Lei Zhanxian in a row. These were all real honors that Jiang Wang's reputation lay in. He thought about it all night and was very clear about the pros and cons. Yingguan and the others were basically in an unsolvable situation now. Unless a powerhouse above the immortal arrival realm suddenly entered and rescued them before Qi could react. Otherwise, with Qi's strength, if he came openly, even a Truth Realm powerhouse wouldn't be able to stop him. In such a tense situation, it was impossible to help Yingguan escape without getting involved. At least, with his wisdom, he couldn't think of such a way. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, he chose to take a little risk. Fortunately, he was qualified to take risks now. But this is the last time. In the future, I can't have anything to do with the gateless hell, because it can be done once or twice, but not thrice. If there are too many suspicions, it will become true. I hope you won't ask me to work for you again. Chapter 572. Yingguan was amused and chuckled. You have to agree to my request first. As for the future, he looked out the window. Let's talk about it later. With the resources of the Four Seas Business Alliance and the connections of the Zhonggenjia, the Daxing Trading Company was doing well in the Yang region. None of the three prefectures in the Yang region dared to offend Chenggang. After the war, there were many things waiting to be done. The people of the Yang region started a new life as the Qi people, and the Daxing Trading Company grew along with it. The Daxing Trading Company was indeed the #1 trading company in the Yang region. There weren't many big trading companies in the Yang region to begin with. The economy and culture of the Yang region had been eroded for many years. After the Yang ancestral temple was destroyed, there weren't even sporadic uprisings. The Daxing Trading Company's business scope was always in the Yang region. Chenggang carefully controlled the situation. Once the Daxing Trading Company's business crossed the Yang region and began to expand within the Qi region, the cooperation with the Four Seas Business Alliance would immediately fall apart. The Jubao merchants had finally fallen, and the Four Seas Business Alliance didn't want to nurture another evenly matched opponent. Thus, it was natural for them to expand their trade routes. It wasn't just the Rong region in the north of the Yang region. There were also caravans from the Daxing Trading Company traveling to and fro the Zheng region in the west. The reason why they chose the Rhone region caravan was because it just so happened to depart on this day. Jiang Wang didn't want to leave any traces of his operation behind. He only wanted to treat it as a casual inspection of the trading company's owner. Before leaving, Jiang Wang spoke to Xiang Qian and Duga Xiao. Xiang Qian, I have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. You can leave tomorrow. We'll meet at the Zheng region. They had already agreed to travel together. What is it? Can I help? Xiang Qian was a little dissatisfied. Jiang Wang smiled. I've been asked to make a trip to the Xiankong Temple. Is it convenient for you? Forget it then. Xiang Qian immediately agreed. His master had defeated the head of the Dragon Subduing Institute, Kubing Zen Master, in the Xiankong Temple's sword test. That was indeed impressive, but the Xiankong Temple would not treat him kindly. That's all. Go to sleep. I want to talk to Xiao Xiao. Jiang Wang began to drive him away. What are you talking about? It's broad daylight. It seems that if I don't sleep, I won't have anything to do. He complained to the front as he walked out. Although he had nothing to do other than sleep, he really didn't want to sleep at this moment. He was about to leave Qingyang town. He didn't know how long it would take, so he wanted to see his old friends. Many people in the town hall knew that Master Xiang's daily routine was to drink and sleep, but there was one thing that he would never change. Every 5 days, he would sit in front of a small grave outside the town. He didn't bring any offerings, only a boiled egg. After Qian Qian's back stepped out of the courtyard, Jiang Wang said to Xiao Xiao, put aside the town affairs and go back to your hometown first. Come back in a few days. The Xiankong Temple incident was only an excuse for Jiang Wang to let Qian Qian go to Zheng. He just didn't want Qian Qian to take the risk. He promised Ying Guan that it was his business, but there was no reason for his friend to take the risk. If everything went smoothly, they would naturally leave together in Zheng. If something happened to him, he would be able to find out about it while he was still in the state of Zheng and make his own arrangements. It was the same for sending Duga Xiao away. If the worst-case scenario happened and Ying Guan failed to escape, and the fact that he helped Ying Guan to cover for him was exposed, then his team in Xingyang town would definitely be implicated. This kind of thing might not happen, but he still had to be prepared. Otherwise, he would be somewhat irresponsible. These people were working here because they trusted him. He couldn't cause trouble and let them take the risk. But Sheng didn't have to worry. He had no opponents in Zhenggenjia now. As long as Jiang Wang didn't expose that he helped Ying Guan enter Linzi, he wouldn't be implicated. Of course, he wouldn't say anything, no matter what happened. Master, did something happen? Duga Xiao was very smart and sensitive. Nothing, you don't have to think too much. I just think it's good for you to go back to your hometown after so long. Take some money from the account and return to your hometown in glory, Jiang Wang said. I remember that your parents are still alive. Your family used to run a tailor shop? Jiang Wang never asked about Duga Xiao's past in detail because he was afraid that she would be sad. He only vaguely heard Duga Xiao talk about it a few times, so he couldn't be sure. I will, Duga Xiao answered, although her expression clearly showed that she was unwilling. She couldn't refuse Jiang Wang's request, and Jiang Wang would never know. In fact, her parents had already been here. To be precise, they were her stepfather and her birth mother. Her father, who was a tailor, died of a serious illness in his early years. Her mother remarried with her. Her stepfather drank too much and often beat and scolded her and her mother when he was drunk. Her mother was weak and didn't dare to be angry or say anything. She could only suffer along with them. Those days were worse than death. She didn't know how to live each day. Later, her stepfather sold her for 3 taels of silver. She was actually happy, thinking that she finally didn't have to be beaten anymore. Later, she went to the mine and met the cultivator who said he would take care of her. She briefly thought that she had touched happiness, but that cultivator suddenly disappeared one day and never appeared again. Later, Guheng forcibly took her away, of course. These things didn't need to be mentioned. After she became a transcendent being and became the person in charge of a town hall, her parents actually came looking for her. That drunkard, violent, and repulsive man, and that weak woman who didn't care about her children and didn't even protect her own daughter. She met them. She also gave them some money. However, this pitiful couple met with an accident on their way back. Unfortunately, they were robbed and killed by bandits. As for how the bandits knew that they had valuables on them and why they killed them after robbing them, no one would ever know, because those bandits were also eliminated not long after. Duga Xiao promised Jiang Wang that she would go back to her hometown to have a look, but she didn't know what to look for. After all, she was following orders. So, she decided to go back. She had her own thoughts and feelings. However, she didn't want to go against Jiang Wang's decision. After settling Xiang Qian and Duga Xiao, Qingyang town had nothing else to do. All the luggage was in the storage box. Jiang Wang went out with a sword in his hand. The caravan to Rome was already waiting outside the town. The person in charge of the caravan was surnamed Xiao. He was a very ordinary middle-aged man. He knew his limits. After Jiang Wang got into the carriage, he didn't bother Jiang Wang anymore and didn't continue to flatter him. Ingwan was still wearing the invisible clothes. He quietly hid in another loaded carriage. The border was under martial law, which meant that everyone who entered or left had to have their identity verified. They had to have a clean background. In the past, the situation of being able to leave after paying customs duties didn't exist anymore. Every city in the state of Qi had an array formation that specialized in sensing things. The array itself was a part of the nation-protecting array and was of a very high grade. It would immediately react to the fluctuations of Taoist techniques. The invisible clothes couldn't even be considered a magic artifact, because its effects came from the invisible Snake King's innate skin and the heavenly robe weaving technique. The invisible snake was also a product of the forest-ocean origin realm. Few people in the modern realm had seen it before, so there was no need to target it. This was also what Jiang Wang relied on to formulate his plan. Even though he had made many preparations, it was still difficult for him to remain completely calm. After all, it was still unknown whether the invisible clothes could make it out of the border city. If they were discovered, he would have to react immediately. Just as he was mulling over every detail in his mind, the carriage's curtains moved slightly. Ingwan got into the carriage. Jiang Wang didn't like surprises, so he frowned. However, Ingwan's voice still rang out. Jiang Wang, I have a new idea. Chapter 573. Even though the other party was Ingwan, the ruthless King Qingguang, Jiang Wang still expressed his dissatisfaction. You've prepared so much, and now you're telling me that you have a new idea? However, he was very clear in his heart that it was normal for a person like Ingwan to not completely trust him. He changed his mind at the last minute to keep others guessing, so that those with ill intentions wouldn't be able to target him in time. Ingwan might not suspect Jiang Wang, but this was the choice he would make. He didn't place his hopes on others and only believed in himself. Listen to my idea first, then you can comment. What do you think? Ingwan asked. Jiang Wang was expressionless. Ingwan suddenly asked, Do you know what reward the Qi court is giving out for capturing me? Jiang Wang had been the manhunt team for a long time, so of course he knew about the reward. If there was any clue to the Yama King of Hell, it would be verified and brought to justice. Those below the 4th rank will be promoted by 1 rank. They could choose any one of the 3 secret techniques in the National Treasury. The reward was generous. This was only the discovery of a concrete clue. It was just a matter of informing the authorities, so there was no need to take the risk. As for those above the 4th rank, they had to fight for the reward of killing or capturing the Yama King. If not for the fact that the Yama Kings of the 10 palaces were all powerful and ordinary people couldn't even get close to them, the entire Qi court would have been searching for them. The reward is generous. So? Jiang Wang asked. Ingwan's expression couldn't be seen because he was wearing a stealth suit, but his voice was calm. Use your blue metal authority to inform them of my whereabouts. Lure Yulong here. If it was an ordinary person, they would think that Ingwan was testing them. However, Jiang Wang didn't think so. For someone like Ingwan, even if he wanted to test them, it wouldn't be so obvious. What do you want to do? Jiang Wang frowned. If he wanted to pass information to Yulong, it couldn't be fake. Otherwise, it would be tantamount to confessing. Therefore, Guan's whereabouts would be known by the manhunt team. Under such circumstances, Guan's decision was no different from suicide. I'm very touched that you didn't betray me. Therefore, I want you to receive a reward and be promoted. TSK, a rank, 4 blue medal, very impressive. Even if you really want to give me some benefits, you don't have to court death. Jiang Wang said, if you have any family heirloom, you can give it to me now. Guan completely ignored the second half of the sentence and only asked, do I not look like someone who would seek his own death? You're the one who sends others to their deaths, Jiang Wang said. If Guan wanted to die, he could have just let the tortoise eat him. There is no need to escape from the Yu country and go through so much trouble. Then let me rephrase. Guan chuckled softly. The Yama Kings under my command are still struggling bitterly in the Biwu County, and I don't even know how many of them have perished. This made me very worried. As the leader, I decided to take responsibility. I want to make a big noise at the border, a big noise. Create an opportunity for them to escape to the nearby islands. Jiang Wang had previously assumed that Qin Yi had instructed his subordinate Yama Kings to divert some of the attention away from him in Biwu County, while Qin Yi sneaked off to Scarlet Sun County in search of an opportunity to escape the borders of Cathay. But unexpectedly, what Guan wanted to do was the exact opposite. That said, Jiang Wang shook his head softly. You don't seem like the kind of person who would sacrifice himself for the sake of others. But that doesn't mean I won't do it. Do you think you know me well, Jiang Wang? Of course I don't know you well enough. But I was there when you left the Yu country and threatened the commander of the Monument Army, Zhang Chuyan. Why would someone like you seek death when the matter of the Yu country hasn't been resolved yet? Jiang Wang's mind churned with thoughts, but he eventually responded, I don't know. He could tell that Guan didn't want to reveal his true intentions, so he simply glossed over it. That's it then. Guan smiled. Think of a way to send a message. I infiltrated your caravan, but you discovered me by accident. Someone as wise as you pretended not to know, but you secretly informed the arresting god. In the end, King Qingguang was executed on the spot, and you, the Tianzhao Jiang Qingyang of Deqi, performed another meritorious deed to wash away the shame of the assassination of the Minister of Rights for Deqi. The choreography of this play is perfect, at least for me. Jiang Wang nodded and asked again, Are you sure? This is my decision. I won't blame you for my death. After this, we'll be even. After saying this, Jiang Wang felt that Guan disappeared again. He should have returned to the carriage with the goods. What did Guan want to do? Although he did not say it clearly, Jiang Wang could still vaguely guess it. In any case, this matter wouldn't do any harm to Jiang Wang. It was enough to cover up all the doubts about the hell. He had personally pointed out the whereabouts of the bandit leader, King Qingguang. How could he have colluded with the hell? As long as this matter was completed, even if someone stood up and said that he had arranged for Guan to enter Linzi City and presented evidence, no one would believe it. They would probably suspect that the evidence was fabricated. He resisted the temptation and didn't betray Guan. It should be said that there was no temptation, because Jiang Wang never had such thoughts from the beginning to the end. This might be Guan's way of returning the favor. However, Jiang Wang would rather believe that Guan only had his own ideas and was carrying them out. Jiang Wang wasn't a selfish person, but it was a good thing that he didn't have to take the risk. In Guan's new plan, he was only responsible for transmitting his whereabouts and letting Yu Lung and the others know where Guan was. As for the outcome, he didn't care at all. He sat in the carriage and thought quietly for a while, rethinking everything. Finally, he let out a long breath and opened the curtains. Where are we? Steward Xiao, who was in the carriage behind, hurriedly got down from the carriage. He jogged to Jiang Wang's side. We're about to enter Yu City. Hingyang County and Rizhao County bordered Rome. The carriage could directly go from Rizhao County to Rome. Yu City. Jiang Wang seemed to have thought of something. I remember that there's a serene medical center in Yu City. Is it still open? Why don't you enter the city to replenish your supplies? I'll go take a look. The signboard is still there, Steward Xiao replied. Cultivate in peace. I'll call you when we reach Yu City. The carriage had just left Jia City and didn't need to replenish their supplies. However, Jiang Wang was the owner. He had to create a need, even if he didn't need it. Hence, they continued to move forward. When they reached Yu City, Steward Xiao came to invite them. Jiang Wang ended his cultivation. The carriage stayed outside the city. He and a few people in charge of purchasing goods walked into Yu City. The guardian of Rizhao County was Tian Antai from the Tian family of days. He was of noble birth and had outstanding military achievements. Of course, in Jiang Wang's opinion, the most important thing about him was that he had a younger brother called Tian Anping. Tian Antai, or rather, the aides that the Tian family had prepared for him, had good governance skills. This could be seen from the new look of Yu City. This also showed that the Tian family really treated Rizhao County as their foundation. They were eyeing the position of governor in the future. They didn't just want to make a fortune and leave. If they could manage Rizhao County into Days County, the Tian family's future would be limitless. Jiang Wang went to Serene Medical Center. As Steward Xiao said, the signboard was still there. However, it gave off a different feeling. There was nothing much to say. After all, old Master Qin and his son were both dead. However, when Jiang Wang left, he hid in an alley next to the medical center and left a blue metal warning sign of the highest level. Then, he pretended that nothing had happened and left. Although he was only a temporary blue metal, he still had some understanding of the relevant rules of a blue metal constable. After all, a temporary blue metal was still a blue metal. At this point, the performance of discovering King Qingguang's whereabouts and finding an opportunity to secretly report the blue metal was over. No one could find any problems with it. However, when Jiang Wang was about to leave the alley, he suddenly thought of something. The script was good. However, when it really went on stage, would the actors with their own thoughts act according to the script? Chapter 574. Not long after the caravan set off again, Jiang Wang saw the blue metal markings on the side of the road. A few branches seemed to be casually placed together, but only a blue metal arrestor of a certain level could decipher the meaning behind it. After seeing the markings, Jiang Wang, who had been riding for half a day, dismounted and returned to the carriage with the excuse that it was stuffy in the carriage. But before he lifted the curtain, he put his hand behind his back and seemed to inadvertently flick his little finger 3 times. No one was paying attention to him, but Jiang Wang knew that someone must have understood the meaning of this gesture. He was using the blue metal to confirm that the leader of the Doorless Hell, Qingguang Wang, was in the caravan. He used his blue metal to ensure the accuracy of the information. Jiang Wang, who was sitting in the carriage, was expressionless. At the same time, he was sure of one thing. There was a cheap blue metal spy in his caravan. He just didn't know which family it belonged to. The Capital Inspection Office nominally controlled the blue metal arresters in the country, but that was only in name. The blue metal arresters were still in charge of the local officers. It was the same for the county governor's office and the mayor's office. At most, when a blue metal arrester was handling a case across the border, the local blue metal arresters needed to cooperate. The Yangdi region was an exception because it was a place that had recently come under the control of the government. The blue metal arresters in the 3 counties of the Yangdi region were basically based on the blue metal arresters sent by the Capital Inspection Office as the backbone and the local extraordinary arresters in the Yangdi region. They were under the jurisdiction of the Capital Inspection Office, but this would not last long. Other than Huang Yixing, who had to be cautious and keep a low profile, the other 2 governors of the 3 counties of the Yangdi region would definitely find a way to take back this power. Whether it was the Tian family or the Gao family, they both had the confidence and strength to do so. Jiang Wang still didn't know if they had completed this task. Therefore, he couldn't be sure who had planted the spy in the caravan. If it was Tian Antai behind it, it would be normal for him to exert his influence on the businesses under his jurisdiction. But if it was a spy from the Capital Inspection Office, then the problem was a bit more serious. This meant that someone had their eyes on him. Could it be related to Lin Yuxi? It would be easy to find out if there were any new workers in the caravan. But now was not the time to do such things. He had already given out the information, and no matter who it was, they would definitely not miss this piece of information. King Qingguang was the biggest fish in the entire operation. If he caught this fish, it would be enough for him to eat. No matter who planted the spy, Jiang Wang didn't intend to have any reaction. Once Yingguan's whereabouts were confirmed, his suspicions would immediately be cleared. Cheng Geng let the shadow guards handle the real private matters. There was nothing shameful in the Daxing Trading Company. It was good to let others know. At least it was more reliable than malicious speculation. Next, they only needed to wait for Yulong to arrive. There was no doubt that once he received King Qingguang's exact news, he would definitely rush over as fast as he could. Otherwise, why would he leave the mountain? At this moment, Jiang Wang was surprisingly calm. He even diverted a part of his attention into the inner mansion and organized it in an orderly manner. If the inner mansion was compared to a specific mansion, every corner of the house and courtyard needed to be cleaned frequently. If some places weren't appropriate, they needed to be repaired. For the child in this mansion, the mansion itself was a vast world. In some places, he would hide his treasures. It might be some shiny stones or just a slingshot. The cultivator was the child, and the inner mansion was the mansion. Jiang Wang had already plucked the most precious seed of supernatural power, but he could still try to unearth the hidden treasures. The caravan moved forward in an orderly manner. Apart from Steward Shao, there was no other transcendent cultivator in the caravan. Because the law and order in Qi were very good, ordinary bandits still had room to live because the government was too lazy to deal with them. Most of the transcendent cultivators who became bandits were eliminated very quickly. And after arriving in Rome, as Qi citizens, they would be protected very carefully by the Rome officials. Therefore, they didn't need too much transcendent power. The spy planted by the blue metal might be an exception. He might have some secret technique to hide his strength, but he might also be an ordinary person. Sometimes, it was easier for ordinary people without any cultivation to carry out missions because they were often overlooked. Most of the people in this caravan were just ordinary people who lived in the caravan, and no one knew what kind of upheaval was waiting for them. Biwu County, in a hidden courtyard, the blue metal constables led by Ma Xiong surrounded this place. In the previous operation, Yulong had personally led the pursuit team to search Biwu County, pressing forward step by step. After he suddenly left, Ma Xiong continued to carry out the specific tasks, trapping the few Yama kings who came to Biwu County in this courtyard. It was now time to reel in the net. In order to make up for the lack of combat power after Yulong's departure, apart from Ma Xiong and the other blue metal constables, Biwu County Governor Yang Luo personally led a team of 3,000 Biwu County soldiers to form a military formation. This force could completely wipe out the remaining Yama kings in one fell swoop. However, the Yama kings who noticed this scene weren't frightened at all. This was because their real bodies weren't here. King Qingguang has indeed lured Yu Lung away. On the screen of Coroner Wang Xianhua, King Pingding was agitated. Biwu County Governor Yang Luo was invited, which meant that Constable Yu Lung was really not here. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Ma Xiong, who came from the city's inspection office, could only ask for help from the Biwu County officials. Yang Luo personally led the troops, which was enough to show how important he was. But to King Pingding, Yang Luo wasn't important. In his knowledge, the strongest person in the outer building should be King Qingguang. In this group of top-notch outer building who didn't submit to anyone, King Qingguang sat firmly on the throne. Of course, his strength suppressed everyone. As for the other experts, their strength was limited as they hadn't reached God's descent. Yulong's departure meant that his chances of survival had increased greatly. So it was hard for him not to be agitated. King Qingguang has fulfilled his promise, King Songdi said. King Bianqing looked at Coroner Wang. How are you? Can you still support yourself? Coroner Wang was obviously a little weak. I've split out all the parts of my body and temporarily pieced together a body. Now, even my inner mansion strength is unstable. After this, I can only rely on you guys. At this time, In the courtyard surrounded by Ma Xiong and the others, the 5 Yama were all transformed from Corner Wang's flesh and blood. It was to lure the pursuit team away and create an opportunity. King Sony nodded. You've done your job. Now it's time for us to work. At this time, Ma Xiong and the others had already attacked the courtyard. They would probably soon discover that the target was fake. Corner Wang cut off the light screen that showed the courtyard to avoid being tracked. He said in his usual difficult tone, Qi's top experts can't be easily moved. Otherwise, they wouldn't have only sent Yulong. Now that Yulong has been lured away, what else do we have to be afraid of? King Qingguang gave an order before he left. He ordered us to split into 2 groups. One group will go to the Gao family in Jinghai and the other to Tianfu City. Slaughter the Gao family in Jinghai, destroy Tianfu City, and turn the world upside down. Qi has just annexed the Yang country. Many forces in the eastern region are dissatisfied with it, but they don't dare to say anything. We'll create an opportunity for them. Then, we'll take advantage of the chaos in the 2 counties to escape and meet at the coastal islands. After this battle, we, the Gateless Hell, will become famous in the world. Soon, we'll become stronger. His words were supposed to be very provocative, but his tone was flat and indifferent, without the slightest ripple. Fortunately, these Yama were already familiar with his style of speaking. The Gao family in Jinghai should be more difficult to deal with. After all, with a favored consort, they probably have many trump cards. King Songdi said calmly, King Qingguang has taken on the most difficult responsibility. In this operation of Qi, I'm under him, so I'll go to Jinghai County. Chapter 575. Among the 10 kings of hell, King Songdi was ranked 3rd and had the highest status among the 5 present. King Songdi is so bold. I'll go with you. King Pingdang shouted. After confirming that Yulong had been lured away by King Qingguang, his anxiety seemed to have disappeared. At this moment, his voice was intense and full of heroism. However, everyone knew that he only wanted to follow King Songdi to ensure his own safety. No one exposed him. Everyone's status in the organization was slowly formed under such circumstances. If the Gateless Hell continued to develop, King Pingdang, who lacked responsibility, would probably not be able to maintain his current position. King Bianxing only said, Then I'll go to Tianfu City. Corner King, which side will you follow? King Dushir asked. With my current strength, I can't drag you down. I'll go by myself, Corner King said. After you complete your plan and cause chaos, I'll think of a way to escape to the sea. King Songdi looked at him and casually advised, In your current state, it's hard to guarantee your safety if you go by yourself. Corner King was expressionless. He only said, It's up to fate. All right. King Songdi did not say anything else. Then let's move. Corner King closed his hands and cut off the connection. When the light screen disappeared and no one could see him anymore, the exhaustion in his eyes was swept away. He had indeed put in a lot of effort this time, but it wasn't as if he didn't have any corpses of experts. In many operations, King Qingguang had brought Corner King along with him. Corner King also frequently passed down orders for King Qingguang, so no one doubted his words. However, only he knew that King Qingguang had not given such an order this time. King Qingguang's original words were only that he would lure Yulong away and let everyone take the opportunity to break through the border. He did not mention anything about slaughtering the Tranquil Sea High School and breaching Tianfu City. I wonder if Yingguan is dead now, Corner King muttered. But if they were to break through the border like a swarm of bees, how could they escape? The Gateless Hell needs someone to take charge of the situation. There was no natural barrier between Rong and Yang. When Yang was still Yang, this was not a problem. However, Yang became Qi's territory overnight. This became a big problem for the Rong Imperial Court to sleep and eat. Almost all of Rong's most elite troops were stationed in the border city of Yingguang City, but they could only provide some comfort. The real sense of security was actually given by the Jing Kingdom, which ruled over the world, the Mu Kingdom, which was restless in the north, and the Xia Kingdom, which was constantly thinking about revenge. These superpowers didn't want to see Qi become stronger. It was only because the great powers kept each other in check that there was room for the small nations to survive. The Battle of Qiyang had started very suddenly and ended very quickly. That was why those powerful countries didn't have time to interfere. Ronghua was determined to learn from this lesson. That was why he was guarding Luoguang's city to the death. He only hoped that if war broke out one day, he would be able to hold on for a few more days. When the Qi kingdom sealed off the borders of the Yang kingdom, they had left behind many centuries. After the land of the Yang kingdom was taken over by the Qi kingdom, these centuries were converted into border outposts. They were closer to the border than the border cities of the Yang kingdom. They were already near the boundary marker that separated the Yang and Rong kingdoms. Qi did not use the former border city of the Yang country as a border city. Instead, he expanded the outpost and stationed his troops there. However, Ronghua did not dare to say anything. Other than being more vigilant, all he could do was be more vigilant. Thanks to Zhao Xian, the former Minister of Rights, the Yang Kingdom's nation-protecting array was easily integrated into Qi's nation-protecting array. Now, it covered these centuries as well. Although the nation-protecting array was not fully activated, it was not easy to enter or leave the Qi kingdom under martial law. For example, if a merchant group wanted to go to the Rong kingdom, they would have to verify their identity at the border sentries and be recorded by the border army. After using a seal, they would be issued a pass before they could cross the border peacefully. If they tried to force their way in without a pass, they would definitely trigger a reaction from the nation-protecting array. Although it was not very strong, an outer-level cultivator would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. This level of protection was enough for the assassins from the Sect of Hell. For a nation-protecting array, like Qi's nation-protecting array, even if it was completely shut down, it would still consume a lot of resources every day. Stopping an outer-level cultivator was completely different from stopping an outer-level cultivator from stopping a Divine Descent cultivator or even a true-level cultivator. That was why the Political Affairs Hall had set a limit on the power of an outer-level cultivator. Amidst all these thoughts, the Dushing Trading Company's merchant group finally neared the border. In less than an hour, they would be able to reach the nearest border sentries. The horse carriage moved forward at a constant speed. Jiang Wang's eyes were slightly closed, as if he had fallen asleep. Suddenly, he heard the sound of wind. It was a sharp whistling sound, like the roar of a mutated beast. Someone was approaching at a terrifying speed. Jiang Wang immediately opened his eyes and flew out of the horse carriage. He shouted, "Don't worry about the goods. I will take responsibility for any losses. Everyone, scatter and run for your lives." A black dot in the sky grew larger and larger, and soon, a specific outline appeared. Yu Lung, who was wearing a black arrester's uniform, descended from the sky. His target was very clear. He was heading straight for the horse carriage that Yin Guan was hiding in. Boom! He arrived, and the horse carriage collapsed. Even the goods and the horses pulling the carriage were all destroyed. However, he did not hurt anyone in the merchant group nearby. This was the power of a resting god. However, Yin Guan was nowhere to be seen. Yulong paused for a moment and looked to the right. So there is such a thing. No wonder you could make it all the way here. However, it ends here, King Qingguang. Yin Guan put away his concealment clothes and revealed himself. He frowned and said, "How did you find me?" Of course, he was not asking about the concealment clothes, but how Yu Lung knew that he was hiding in this merchant group. Jiang Wang thought that Yin Guan's expression was still very detailed, but compared to Cheng Gengsheng's acting skills, it was still lacking in smoothness and realism. However, he said loudly, "I was the one who found you. How could the famous king, Qingguang, be so rude? You hid in my merchant group, but you didn't even greet me? You are courting death." However, Yin Guan's gaze hardened and he turned around. He actually ignored Yu Lung and pounced directly at Jiang Wang. Before he arrived, the ruthless power of the curse was already surging toward him. He raised his fist at this moment, and in the next moment, the fist wrapped in green light was already aimed at Jiang Wang's face. Jiang Wang hurriedly raised his finger to block, and a spot of true samadhi fire exploded at the critical moment. Boom! That spot of true samadhi fire was directly dispersed. The true samadhi fire that could burn anything was unable to show its characteristics in front of such a powerful force. In fact, the evil power of the curse was even attacking his body. Jiang Wang vomited blood and flew backward. A thought appeared in his mind. Son of a B** T6, does it have to be so realistic? Is this B** starred really thinking of taking the opportunity to kill me? A hand held him up. Yulong arrived in time and pressed his hand lightly, instantly dispelling the power of the curse that was attacking his body. No matter what, Yulong could not just watch Jiang Wang die in front of him. No matter if it was the protection of a blue metal arrestor as a god of arrest, or the protection of the younger generation of Qi Nation as a powerful person of the older generation. He stared at Yingguan and felt that this King Qingguang who had no door to hell was really fierce. He actually wanted to kill someone in front of him. Just this bit of courage alone was much stronger than that King Taishan. However, what he did not know was that Yingguan was even more courageous than he had imagined. It was to the extent that the meeting with him this time, from the beginning to the end, was entirely Yingguan's plan. Outside Tower versus Immortal Arrival. Chapter 576. Jiang Wang had said before that Yingguan didn't seem like someone who was seeking death. However, Yingguan's current actions were equivalent to seeking death. Only Tianjiao would dare to challenge someone of a higher realm. However, the higher the realm, the harder it was to surpass. Talented cultivators could easily surpass the gap between the Wandering Pulse realm and the Heavenly Cycle realm. Mortal martial arts could be used in this realm. However, it was much more difficult to surpass the gap between the Heavenly Cycle realm and the Heaven Ascension realm. There was a Heaven and Earth gate between the Heaven Ascension realm and the Soaring Dragon realm. It was like a natural chasm. However, the Heaven Ascension realm had a lot of room for improvement. In essence, it was an exploration of the limits of the mortal body. Many Tianjiao would work hard in this realm, which made people feel that it was common for Heaven Ascension realm cultivators to defeat Soaring Dragon realm cultivators. However, this wasn't the case. The situation of an inner house cultivator challenging an outer house cultivator was an exception. This was because of the existence of the inner house cultivator with supernatural powers. The inner house cultivator with supernatural powers was on another level. A powerful supernatural power could surpass the gap between realms and be comparable to an outer house cultivator. The old man of the Heavenly Mansion had even created a record of killing many outer house cultivators by himself. However, it was almost impossible for an outer house cultivator to challenge someone of the Divine Descent realm. This was because the Divine Descent realm was an upgrade of life essence. Unlike a god, this wasn't a lie. Only when one reached the Divine Descent realm could they surpass the human lifespan of 129 years and 6 months. They could enjoy a lifespan of 518 years. Many countries and forces couldn't last that long. People usually divided the 9 realms into 3 levels. The Heaven and Earth Gate was the difference between low-level and mid-level cultivators, and lifespan was the difference between mid-level and high-level cultivators. Why did the Northern Yamen Commandant only invite Yulong? Because Yulong was enough. He alone could defeat everyone in the Hell Gate with the power of a divine descent. Now, near the border, King Qingguang, who was alone, was intercepted by Yulong. For everyone who saw this scene, this was almost a hopeless situation. Even Jiang Wang couldn't see Yingguan's chance of survival. However, this was Yingguan's own choice. He seemed to be seeking death. With a casual pull, Yulong sent the injured Jiang Wang behind him. Then, he stepped into the air and headed straight for Yingguan. If you have any life-saving means, hurry up and take them out, Yulong said. Otherwise, I won't have the chance to use it again. As he spoke, he stared at Yingguan. As a god of hunters, he naturally believed in his own observation and judgment. The cunning King Qingguang had been hiding here and there in the Qi territory. He had slipped all the way to the border, but he had been discovered at the last moment. This was truly too much of a coincidence. Was it a design? Did he have some kind of backup plan? If so, under what circumstances? What could it be? Although he had been in seclusion for many years, he had not completely lost his vigilance as a god of hunters. However, the results of his observation surprised him. There were no traps or ambushes. In the entire battlefield, there was nothing that could hide danger from him. He completely believed in his judgment that King Qingguang had not made any preparations in this place. This was a sudden arrest. The man of Qingyang town, Jiang Wang, was very reliable. He could remain calm in an extremely dangerous situation. Using the channels of the blue metal arresters, he decisively sent a message to him. It was because of this that he could intercept King Qingguang at such an important moment. Although he didn't know how King Qingguang was going to get past the checkpoint, since he had already come here and appeared near the border, he must have found a way to break through the checkpoint. Jiang Wang's contribution this time couldn't go unnoticed. Perhaps he could be given an official blue medal or even a fourth-class one. As this thought flashed through his mind, Yulong had already pounced on Yingguan. He was fierce and direct. As he opened his hand, 8 black iron pillars that seemed to connect heaven and earth suddenly fell down, encircling an area of 10 miles. Heaven and earth were like a cage, and everything was within his palm. Everyone and everything within 10 miles was within the range of the black iron pillars, including Yulong, Yingguan, Jiang Wang, and the people in the caravan. "Let's go!" Jiang Wang flew out quickly and even grabbed the last 2 people in the caravan. After all, Yulong was a citizen of Qi. It was reasonable for him to try his best not to affect the ordinary citizens of Qi during the battle. On the other hand, Yingguan was a vicious killer, but he also restrained his power and didn't hurt the ordinary people. This made Yulong think highly of him. What he didn't know was that Yingguan was not someone who cared about the lives of others. He only promised Jiang Wang that he would let these people escape under the condition that it wouldn't affect him. The black iron pillars sealed the space, but Jiang Wang and the people in the caravan could escape without any hindrance. Those who committed crimes would be punished. Those who didn't commit crimes would not be punished. In this cage, only King Qingguang would be punished. Yingguan's reaction was also very direct. His eyes started to glow green, and his long hair grew crazily until it reached his ankles. He immediately entered his strongest state. He didn't try to attack the black iron pillars that sealed the space, nor did he have any thoughts of escaping. Instead, he rushed forward and punched Yulong. Of course, Yulong wouldn't retreat. He didn't need to. He retracted his fingers and clenched them into a fist. This was a very pure fist. He saw King Qingguang waving his fist, and he met it casually. That was all. Bang! The 2 fists collided. Yingguan retreated violently, but Yulong didn't move at all. One must know that Yingguan had already attacked with all his might, but Yulong only punched casually. The difference between the peak of the outer tower and the god descends was so terrifying. The 3rd stage of the god descends was the golden body, Jade Marrow. What was the golden body? What was the Jade Marrow? Without any loss of power, one would always be at the peak. In ancient times, this stage was called the Immortal Realm. Yulong lowered his head slightly and looked at his fist. On his fist, there was a faint dark color that was hard to detect. This is a spell? Such a small trick, but it has evolved to such a stage in your hands. King Qingguang, you should be proud. He clenched his fist and chased away the dark color. In front of such a huge difference in strength, Yingguan didn't show any signs of weakness, let alone fear. He had a much deeper understanding of the difference between the peak of the outer tower and the god descends than Jiang Wang, but he still made such a choice. He was already aware of this fact. His demonic green eyes stared at Yulong. His gaze was hovering between madness and coldness. There are many people in this world who can only rely on what they have. How to cultivate, when to break through, sometimes there is no choice. Lord Constable, You have been in the limelight for your whole life. I don't think you understand. I curse you, Ingguan's voice said. In such a state, his voice also sounded evil. I curse you with misfortune. I am in a desperate situation. I curse you to walk with me. I curse you to have no future and no hope. There seem to be dark clouds above Yulong's head. I curse you to have a short life and suffer hardships for the rest of your life. Above Yulong's forehead, there seemed to be black gas. Ingguan rushed over again. Black smoke flowed out of his 7 orifices, and his fist was wrapped in green light. I curse you to die today and die without a burial place. P.S. Reader Group, Red Heart Camp 8799-27532. Come and play. Chapter 577. No one cared about him when he was alive, and no one collected his body after he died. He was alone in life and in death. In this world, dying without a burial ground was the most vicious curse. The most vicious curse also meant that it was related to curse techniques and the strongest power. Ingguan activated the curse, and instantly, resentment grew. Malice grew in everyone's heart, spreading and growing. Within the range of the cast iron black pillars, endless curse power wandered wildly. It actually brought about a substantial howling wind. This was a tsunami in everyone's heart. If the people in the caravan hadn't left yet, they would have been completely corroded by the curse. All of them died from self-destruction, and no one was spared. Ingguan rushed forward while cursing. His long hair that reached his feet danced in the wind, as if he wanted to destroy everything in front of him. He was ferocious, like a demon. That kind of dark power was so oppressive that it almost suffocated people. Even if they were separated by the cast iron black pillars that connected this place. After seeing Ingguan's power today, Jiang Wang knew that the few times he saw Ingguan make a move, it was like a joke. He didn't show his true strength at all. Facing such a Ingguan, even if he was a famous genius in Qi, he couldn't last even one round. However, the scary thing was, even such a Ingguan, the top Ingguan of the outer sect, didn't have any chance in front of Yulong, who was in the divine descent realm. Facing Ingguan's overwhelming curse power, Yulong only spat out one word: might. In the sky behind him, the shadow of a divine beast faintly appeared. There was a horn on its forehead, sturdy and majestic. Its eyes were wide open, and its hair was black and dense. There was a divine beast called Xieji, which could distinguish between right and wrong, good and evil. It fed on evil people and was called a magic beast. It was the only divine beast worshipped by the legalists. The moment this shadow appeared, the black clouds above his head dissipated, and the black fog on his forehead dissipated. The curse power entangling Yulong's body instantly disappeared, leaving nothing behind. The majesty of the magic beast, all evil retreated. One word dispelled misfortune. Yulong said again, "Marshal." The magic beast behind him let out a long hiss, and its 4 hooves stepped on the air, creating a dull sound like a staff hitting the ground. It passed by Yulong's body, lowered its head, and directly crashed into Ingguan. This person was guilty, and he was punished with his horn. Black smoke surged out of Ingguan's 7 apertures. The green light in his eyes grew deeper, and the green light on his fists blazed even brighter. He charged over with astonishing power, but at the moment of collision, he was knocked over by the corner of the magic beast. With Jiang Wang's eyesight, he saw that Ingguan had tried at least 8 different ways to avoid the attack, but he still couldn't avoid it. The touch of the magic beast's horn seemed to be set by the law and established by the rules. It was a matter of course and unavoidable. Being hit was the natural order of things. It would be inconceivable if he could escape. Ingguan, who had been sent flying in midair by the magical beast, seemed to have been triggered by its ferocious nature. With a shout, he spread open his 10 fingers, which were shrouded in green light, and ruthlessly pierced them into the magical beast's body, tearing outwards. Before he could stop flying backwards, the phantom of the magical beast had already collapsed. As for Ingguan's abdomen, The wound caused by the magic beast's horn was bleeding profusely. Outside the black pillar, Jiang Wang saw that there was a black mist-like substance swimming in the blood. Yingguan stretched out his hand and pressed on his abdomen. The blood flow immediately stopped. The green light in his eyes deepened. Jiang Wang still remembered that when Yingguan and the commander of the monument-bearing army, Zheng Chuyang, were fighting outside the 27th lower city of the Unation, Yingguan had already withdrawn from his strong estate and left before the green light had filled his eyes. And at this moment, Yingguan still hadn't stopped. He even rushed towards Yulong immediately after he stopped the blood flow. He took the initiative to attack again and again, as if he was the one with the absolute advantage. Jinghai County, Gao clan's territory. High up in the sky, King Pingding, who was wearing the King of Hell's mask, shouted loudly, "The King of Hell has arrived. Why aren't you waiting for your deaths?" Yulong wasn't here, and there weren't any famous divine descent experts in the entire Jinghai County. At this moment, he had no scruples and was extremely deranged. The precarious situation these days made him even more ruthless. He really needed to bathe in fresh blood to calm himself down. On the other hand, King Sondi was much simpler and more direct. He didn't even fly, but only walked forward on the ground. No matter what or who he faced, he only needed one punch. No one could withstand one of his punches, and those who dared to stop him were all blasted to death. Just one punch was enough to shatter the Gao clan's memorial archway. That was the key to the entire Gao clan's territory array. In a secret room, the current head of the Gao clan, Gao Xianchong, was shouting, "Request for help. Quickly request for help. Inform noble consort Jing immediately." As the head of the Gao clan, he knew very well what had happened in Linzi City not long ago. He knew very well what kind of ferocious people the Gateless Hell was. But hadn't the pursuit team from the capital city's patrol office trapped them in Biwu County? Wasn't Arrestor Yulong personally stationed outside the Jinghai County? Now those damned blue metal. Gao Xianchong couldn't help but panic because he deeply understood that no one in the entire Jinghai County could save them. The Jinghai County and Linhai County were both near the sea, but Qi's forces at the border weren't in these two counties, but in the islands near the sea. In the Jinghai County, the Gao clan was the strongest force. But the Gao clan had just risen up and didn't have enough resources. They didn't have the power to fight against the Gateless Hell. The most powerful outer sect master of the Gao clan, Gao Shaoling, was still the Red Tail County supervisor and couldn't make it in time. Even if he was in the Jinghai County, he might not be a match for King Songdi and King Pingding. Gao Xianchong himself was also an outer sect master, but he hid in the secret room and didn't go out, because he knew that going out would be suicide. Only noble consort Jing was their only hope. But while noble consort Jing had some power deep in the palace, she couldn't mobilize enough experts to repel the Gateless Hell. She could only ask Emperor Qi for help. But even though noble consort Jing was very favored, she couldn't see Emperor Qi whenever she wanted to. How long would it take for her to see Emperor Qi and ask for help? Could the Gao clan of the Jinghai County hold out for that long? The head of the Gao clan felt a chill in his heart. The Grand Linzi city was extremely prosperous, but there were also many forbidden areas that forbade anyone from approaching. Many people would never know of the existence of these forbidden areas in their entire lives. Inside one of the forbidden areas, a hunchbacked old man wearing a tattered leather hat and an old jacket walked from the end of the bluestone path. His steps were very slow and could even be said to be hobbling. He held a lantern made of white paper in his hand, as if to light up the path ahead. But it was daytime, so it was strange. His ears twitched as he walked, as if he sensed something. So he turned around. The wrinkles on his face were like ravines and a pair of round blind eyes. If Jiang Wang and Cheng Gengsheng were here, they would recognize him immediately. It was the night watchman they met in the ruins of the Withered Yard. Chapter 578. Damn it! King Bianqing, who was wearing a Yama mask, was furious. The Tianfu secret realm was one of the secret realms managed by the Qi officials. Therefore, there were experts guarding this place to maintain order. The Tianfu city lord was an expert at the peak of the outer sect and had the strength to fight with him. However, it was impossible to stop him and King Dusher from joining forces. According to the previous plan, King Songdi and King Pingdang would be in charge of exterminating Jinghai County, while he and King Dusher would be in charge of attacking Tianfu City. Leaving Jinghai County aside, King Dusher and King Dusher had agreed to attack Tianfu City from the south and north. They would join forces to kill the Tianfu City Lord and then leave in the chaos. The plan was clear, but he was fighting at the south gate, but the north gate was quiet. How could he not know that King Dusher had tricked him? It was obvious that he was using him to attract the attention of the Qi officials. He might have already escaped to the sea. If he went back and told them about this, King Dusher would definitely be hunted down. No matter where he went, he would definitely die. However, King Qingguang might not be able to leave Qi territory alive. It could even be said that he was the one with the slimmest chance of survival, who would uphold the rules, who would preside over the hunt. Not to mention, once he was entangled in Tianfu City, when the other experts from Qi received the news and rushed over, he would not have the chance to say anything. King Bianqing was also a decisive person. He realized that he was in great danger because of King Dusher's betrayal. He immediately threw caution to the wind and used his trump card. He released his 3 souls and howled without caring about the loss. There were 3 souls in the human body: the heavenly soul, the earth soul, and the human soul. They were also known as the fetal light, the refreshing spirit, and the serene spirit. If the heavenly soul was damaged, the person would become retarded. If the earth soul was damaged, the person would go crazy. If the human soul was damaged, the person would be plagued with illness. If the 3 souls were damaged, there would be no cure. For King Bianqing, this was a method that he would not easily show to others. However, at this moment, he could only use this method to quickly injure the Tianfu City Lord. Only then would he have the chance to complete his goal and leave Qi territory. It could even be said that King Dusher's failure to keep his promise had almost destroyed all his chances of survival. This was his only chance. The Lord of Tianfu City was also undoubtedly a strong man who could compete with King Bianqing. However, he had been in charge of Tianfu City in Qi for a long time. Although he was not pampered, he had been in peace for a long time. After all, he was not as decisive as King Bianqing, a cultivator who had been wandering between life and death all year round. Moreover, he never imagined that while both of them were still at the stage of probing each other's foundation, the other party would suddenly take out a method to decide life and death. It was so violent that it caused him to be unable to react for a moment. Seeing the 3 souls shaking, he felt dizzy. He was shocked. Suddenly, he saw a back. It was the back of a hunched old man. That figure silently appeared in front of him. The man held a white paper lantern in one hand, and the candlelight was steady. His other skinny and aged hand pressed forward. It was just a press. King Bianqing's 3 howling souls collapsed at the same time. His vitality was severed on the spot, and he fell from the sky. The Lord of Tianfu City had narrowly escaped death, but he was shocked speechless for a while. By the time he came back to his senses, the hunchbacked old man had already disappeared from his line of sight. The blue sea rolled into a line on the horizon, and the golden rays of the sun dyed the sky and the sea at the same time. This was the end of Linhai County. Although Qi's eastern border army wasn't stationed here, the nation-protecting formation stopped here. In the offshore islands, Qi had its own islands and army, but it couldn't expand the formation there. This was because the owner of the offshore islands was a sect led by Fishing Sea Tower, not Qi. Fishing Sea Tower admitted that those islands belonged to Qi, but they didn't admit that they belonged to Qi. This concept wasn't complicated. It was enough to treat those islands as vassal states of Qi. Yangland didn't belong to Qi before. They admitted the former because of Qi's strength. They didn't admit the latter because of the strength of the sects on the offshore islands. Looking at the endless sea, King Dusher's heart finally relaxed a little. Previously, among the few Yama kings in Biwu County, he was the only one who had a deep understanding of Corner King. He was also very clear that it wasn't King Qingguang's order to split up and attack Tianfu City and massacre Jinghai County, especially when Corner King chose to act alone because he was exhausted and didn't have enough strength. He was even more certain of his judgment. But he didn't say anything. Corner King wanted to take the opportunity to escape, and so did he. Therefore, when King Bianqing attacked, he didn't even touch the city gates and directly rushed to the seaside. Qi Seaside was also heavily fortified. Linhai County had 13 docks with ships coming and going. Business on the sea was very profitable. Although the borders were heavily fortified and it was difficult to enter and exit, it didn't stop merchants from pursuing profits. King Dusher directly rushed to the nearest dock. Without saying a word, he unleashed all his strength and attacked the formation. The soldiers who came to stop him were casually killed by him. He was in a hurry, so he didn't take the initiative to kill these people. But if anyone wanted to affect him, he didn't mind being stained with blood. The nation-protecting formation had the highest chance of being broken at the checkpoint because it was one of the nodes of the formation. King Dusher already had a plan and acted decisively. His weapon was a hiltless dagger. It looked like an ordinary piece of iron, but the tip of the dagger was so dark that it seemed to absorb all the light. He pinched the dagger with his thumb and forefinger and stabbed it into the air. Starlight flashed in the sky, and the 5 residences in his body moved. It seemed simple, but he used all his strength. Suddenly, a faint rippling light screen appeared in the empty sky. There was a chance. Of course, he couldn't break the nation-protecting formation, but in the face of the nation-protecting formation that was only under martial law, he still had a chance to escape by stabbing a small hole that would exist temporarily. This was because the nation-protecting formation's power level was only within the range of the outer building realm. As a top outer building expert, King Dusher had a chance to break the upper limit of the outer building realm if he used all his strength without caring about the cost. Normally, if he attacked the formation, he would be immediately sensed and killed by the experts who arrived. He wouldn't be given a chance to stack his attacks. But now, the Kamsi Gao clan and Tianfu City were both under attack. Where would the experts guarding the Qi formation arrive? King Dusher wanted to take advantage of this time difference. So he didn't hesitate to cause a commotion in the 5 residences and 4 floors. Who is it? King Dusher, who was at the peak of his strength, suddenly turned around with the dagger in his hand. He saw a stooped old man holding a white lantern. His reaction was faster than King Bianqing's, indicating that he was stronger than King Bianqing. Among the original 10 kings of hell, King Bianqing was ranked 6th, and he was ranked 8th. This meant that he had been hiding his strength. But in the face of King Dusher, who was stronger than King Bianqing, the blind watchman still remained calm and just reached out his hand. That withered, thin, and powerless hand, but he couldn't resist it. He couldn't resist it. King Dusher had thousands of thoughts in his mind, and all kinds of secret techniques were eager to try, but he was too late and couldn't move. The old blind watchman held the white lantern in one hand and didn't sway at all. His other hand simply reached out and pressed down. King Dusher, who was so fierce just now and attacked the formation under the gaze of the entire dock, died in an instant. The corpse fell to the ground, and there was no trace of injury on it. As for the blind watchman, he turned around and disappeared again. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.